adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act pursuant to Public Laws 1975, Chapter 231. This agenda is complete to the extent known and was sent to the Trenton Times and the Trentonian newspapers, posted on the first floor bulletin board in City Hall, and filed in the City Clerk's office. Formal action will be taken. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Blakely.
Present.
Ms. Caldwell Wilson. Mr. Harrison.
Present.
Mr. Michelle.
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Present.
Ms. Vaughn.
Present.
Ms. McBride.
Present.
So we're going to go through our agenda and then our docket. There was originally on the amended agenda a presentation by the Department of Water and Sewer. That has been postponed to another date. The council body felt that they need a little more additional time to review the documents that were given to them yesterday, so they could be properly informed and prepare informed questions before they receive the presentation from the Department of Water and Sewer. So that will be rescheduled. We are going to proceed with our docket review. We're going to proceed a little procedural differences. For each department, we are going to ask the director of that department to take a seat at the head of the table and present their resolutions or be able to answer any questions in particular to their individual resolutions or ordinances. So with that, we will begin with resolutions. With the minutes that are going to be presented for the approval from the December 5th regular meeting and the December 17th conference session. We have items and petitions. There are no reports this meeting for your acceptance. There were no ordinances that are being presented for a second reading and public hearing. The resolutions that are going to be presented to you are as follows. From the City Clerk's Office, resolution number 20-43 is authorizing the public sale of wine at the Trenton City Museum Valentine's Jazz Concert to be held on February 14, 2020. Resolution 20-44 is authorizing the public sale of wine and beer at Artworks Art Center located at 19 Everett Alley on February 21st, 2020. Resolution 20-45, approving a person-to-person and place-to-place transfer of plenary retail consumption license 1111-33-174 to Wire Rope TP LLC at the location 120-124 South Warren Street.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
This is a 120, 124 is a, used to be Rio, right? That's the same place we used to have problems with it until they closed.
Where?
Casalitos, the old
Casalito, the
Casalitos.
old Casalito.
Old Casalitos.
Rio. And we wrote for this so that we could get the ABC
So
person
what
to.
wasn't there a stipulation on those licenses?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know. If
There
there's
was.
restrictions and stuff there.
There were
Go ahead.
the license was actually, I don't want to say killed, because the license wasn't killed, but the owner agreed to stop operating under that license. So the license is being transferred to new owners and being placed at that location, but that is not that particular license. That's why it's a place to place. It was a pocket license that someone bought, and that license is being located at that location.
Is there a chance we can get Detective Filiskovich in here for Thursday's meeting?
Unfortunately, Detective Franisovich's father passed away today, and he is on his way to Florida. And because of that, our ABC meeting on Monday is going to be canceled.
But there was a problem with this with the license that the owner had. Now I hear you, Mr. Harris, saying that the license that was initially there for that actual place, it had so many restrictions on that license. So who allowed the people that have purchased this new license to actually make that deal? Like, who said that they could put a new license in there and forego the restrictions that came with the original license.
So the issues were not with the piece of paper of the license. The issues were with the management of the establishment. So because the building, the operations were poorly mismanaged, that's where the problems came in.
We don't know why the problem came in. What we know is there was a lot of problems there.
Okay, so,
I have a question. This is transferring the license to a totally different person.
correct.
So why should the sins of the previous owner be visited upon the new owner? The fact of the matter is, this business is a very prominent business in the city of Trenton. You can barely get a sit-down restaurant in downtown Trenton. I was just remarking with my colleagues that there's few restaurants in the city of Trenton in downtown where lobbyists and folks who come to Trenton for business can actually go to lunch. And so crucial to having a profitable business is having a liquor license. And so instead of visiting the sins of the previous owner on the new owner, we should be doing everything possible as a council to encourage businesses so that they can pay taxes and that we can rebuild the business district, the restaurant district in downtown Trenton. So in conclusion, it's not relevant the past owner. What's relevant is the new owner, their track record, and their, I hope, success. And so that's what I wanted to just make clear.
Wait a minute, Peter. I'd just like to inform my colleague, if he know the history of the city of Trenton, any license that have restrictions on them, when they are moved, the restrictions go with the license. That's the history. We had a lot of businesses that were profitable businesses, but I'll give you an example. The social took on Roland Potts license. The restrictions, that was a new business owner, but the restrictions went with that, with the license. So if you go here and say you don't want the restrictions to go with the license, then you're going to open up the city for a lawsuit, because there is so many licenses in this city that were transferred to new owners that the restrictions went along with the license. This is nothing new. This is the way that the ABC board has set those licenses up from the beginning. Now, if you want to have a conversation about how we change that, then that should be the conversation. But because it's a new owner, it's not what is attached to the license.
So let me ask
the
a question.
restrictions
So that's
are.
a very good point. So let me ask a question. And I'm glad we're having this conversation. This is what a legislative body should do. Have, I think, reasonable conversation. And I think this is one. So they are asking in this resolution for the license to be transferred with the current restrictions.
No.
I'm asking.
Can I explain a little bit more, just based on my knowledge of what I know about the application? So I've seen this come through,
Gotcha.
from the buyer and the seller of this deal that we're trying to put together for the Rope LLC is an LLC corporation that owns several pizzerias, basically around the state. And what they're proposing to do is to secure a limited restricted license under restaurant plan B in the zoning laws that would impose more stringent restrictions than what council imposed when we adjudicated the charges against the former Maxine. So they're proposing to operate as a pizzeria and with very restricted hours, and they're not able to, they wouldn't be able to play music, they wouldn't be able to have entertainment, they wouldn't be able to operate as a nightclub, they wouldn't be able to operate as a lounge bar. They would have limited hours, and it would be confined to operating as a family pizzeria restaurant. That's what they're proposing to do. The prior licensee had many restrictions, and they let the license become deactivated. They didn't come back and apply for a renewal of that license. So I don't, it wasn't killed per se, but it was zombie.
And it was no longer attached to that location.
Right.
And because that license is no longer attached to that location, what Council President is saying, the restrictions are still attached to the license. That is why they are not just doing a person-to-person transfer of that license. They went and purchased a brand new license, clean, in pocket, from another person, transferring that license to that location. That's the place-to-place transfer. And that is what they're looking to do.
But can they do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, just,
Can I say something? That's what I wanted to hear, but can we get that documentation to see before we vote on this? Because if we don't see it later on, if the license are not, if there's restrictions there, my concern was those disco parties. There are 200 or 300 people that were hanging there before. I know, Councilman Char knows that there were a lot of problems in that establishment.
True.
If the license is going to be restricted, no music, no party, it's okay, just a regular restaurant.
It
That's
should be
what,
included in their application, but.
can we get that documentation? So-
I don't think they have those types of restrictions about not operating as a disco or all of that.
That's what we need to.
I just want to
Forward
put
to
it,
the application, but, the point that I want to, really emphasize, from an administrative perspective, I take the applications. It's the governing body that makes the decision, determination of whether the transfer goes through or not. I cannot not take their application, okay, and bring it to the body. You're the ones that decide either it's going to happen or not. And if you feel like you need to place additional restrictions on that license, you have every ability to do so.
President Drive. I just want to add to the record, Mr. Rodriguez mentioned that it was a disco check. And I don't think hasn't been a disco check since, I don't know, the last 50 years or 40 years. I'm just joking, just being a little facetious. I'm being a little facetious. The 1970s, before my time, you know. Yeah, exactly.
Candlelight. You don't remember those?
I don't remember.
Before you were born.
Before I was born.
Go ahead, Mr. Harris, continue.
So I will forward the applications to you tomorrow, and you can review it. But like what Mr. Blakely was saying, the problems were not with the piece of paper, the license. The owner of the license was just disastrous and was allowing all kinds of stuff to go in on his premise. So if you have a new licensee who wants to come in with a great plan and an opportunity to improve the downtown, I mean,
So we will be allowed to have the music, the DJs and stuff.
No.
That's my concern, that's what I'm
Well,
saying.
I don't
If it's a
think-
regular restaurant with a liquor license, it's okay.
right, I don't think,
It's a pizza place. Pizza
Mr.
place.
He was explaining they want to run a pizza parlor.
But
Yeah, but what Councilman Rodriguez is saying, where is it at in writing? If it's not in
That's
writing,
what
it doesn't exist.
it
Where's
should
the
be,
writing?
it should be in the license, right?
Where is it at? That's what I'm,
So that portion of it would be in his zoning application of what he is putting into that establishment, whether it's zoned properly, approved properly, and things like
so
that.
it should be.
Transfer of the license.
It should be attached. Okay, so, Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
if you could get that information for us, 'cause it really should have been attached. Okay, but- I guess I don't have.
The restrictions, no music, that's included here? I didn't see.
So, Councilman Rodriguez will get that information to you if it exists.
This was all sent to you in the packet. It was the application and everything.
Could you let us see that, Mr. Harris, please?
What I want to see is the restrictions in the license, the restrictions he was talking about, that's what I'm concerned. I'm not concerned about having a liquor license there.
So those those are zoning restrictions. They're not restrictions on the license. The license this gentleman is purchasing is a clean license. There are no restrictions attached to the license.
So that means that we cannot put any restrictions to it,
No,
unless we do it through the ABC board.
But his application, just to clarify, his application was for a restaurant plan bid,
That's correct.
which there are zoning restrictions on what he could do, and he provided notices to everybody within 400 feet in accordance with that zoning, those zoning conditions.
So then the zoning B itself should be attached is what,
Okay, I can have that sent to you.
Mr. Cohen is saying, and that's the piece of paper that.
They specify in the license.
It's not on the license, let's be very clear, it's not on the license, it's only restrictions based on that he is under, section B with the planning board.
Under
There's no-
section B,
no-
no
no
restrictions
on the
apply.
license.
Mr. President Bryan, I just want to say for the record that I'm very excited with the prospect of a new restaurant in downtown Trenton. We are in desperate need. I have all of my lunches in Marsville and Ewing and other places, and there are plenty of people who would love to come to the city of Trenton for a good old tomato pie. So I'm very glad that this is happening, and I hope we support it.
Yes.
Resolution number 20-46 is a resolution calling upon the White House
Okay,
and
can we
Congress.
roll call this one?
Yes, roll call 20.
2040.
And can I am very, very happy to present this ordinance for the record, calling upon the White House and Congress to reunify rather, migrant families, release them from detention, and afford them due process in immigration. I think what is occurring in the White House as it relates to detaining immigrants, largely from Central America and South America, is absolutely outrageous. I am very, very happy that the city of Trenton has a long and proud history of welcoming immigrants of all backgrounds into our community. They enrich our communities, they make our community better. I live in Chambersburg, and I know that our neighborhood is better because of the influx of recent immigrants. And so shame on Donald Trump and the President of the United States for his racist and nasty war on immigrants. And I'm hoping that we can, as a council, unanimously support this resolution and support the people who are attempting to call this country home on the base of the Statue of Liberty. It says that America welcomes the huddled masses yearning to breathe free, and Trenton welcomes them, and we need to definitively send a message that Donald John Trump and his henchmen in Washington don't represent the values of this community. And I'm looking forward to a unanimous, I hope, a unanimous support of this resolution so that we can appeal to our better angels and be on record in this very, very important time as it relates to supporting immigrants. That's all I wanted to say.
I have a comment on that also. There's about 5,000 children that have been separated here from whatever. The parents have no access to them. When the parents get whatever the status, they cannot go back. Some of them, they are placed in foster homes. If not, they have been put in cages. There is 10 children in a cage. They look like animals there. That has to stop. I agree with Councilman Blakely on this, and I believe that we should all support this.
So my question is, does this resolution move anything, or is it just a feel-good resolution?
I'm happy to answer that question. So I think it's important that in times like this, that our body.
I just had one question.
Well,
This
no,
is
answer the
simple.
question.
Is either a feel-good resolution or will it move anything? Please, let's.
Okay, well, let me, so.
I asked a question,
I'm
you said
giving
you
you an
can
answer,
answer
you're
it.
interrupting me.
No.
I'm trying to answer the
Straight
question.
up, is it a feel-good or is it
Are you
want to
asking
do
me-
anything?
are
I
you
put a
asking my
question out, if you
question?
can't answer
I'm
it.
going to answer it. If I can answer it, I'm happy to do so.
I don't need a book, I just
No,
need a straight-up answer.
Well, I'm giving you an answer if you can stop interrupting me. And so, as you know, or you should know on your time on council, resolutions are statements of the sentiments of this body. And they feel good, of course, when you are saying something that's good. And so I think it's very important that this council highlight our feelings on matters of the day. Quite frankly, legislative bodies have resolutions on all matters of things, on all matters of issues, so that they can show the world, and it can be clearly reflected in the record, how this council believes in stopping the kidnapping of children. I think that this council spends a lot of time on frivolous things, but I find that this resolution is probably one of the most important statements that we can make to a large portion of our population. We have people in this city that have immigrated to this country and have been impacted by the terrible behavior and terrible actions of Donald Trump. And I hope that they see this as their community standing side by side with them. And so to characterize it as just a feel-good message is absolutely a ridiculous assertion. And, you know, I think that it's very clear that this is something that we should have on record to ensure that we are speaking clearly against the racist, dastardly, and terrible actions emanating from our White House.
I'm going to add to it. Section 7 of the resolution states, we direct the municipal clerk to send a copy of this resolution duly adopted to Mercer County freeholders, State Assembly representatives Anthony S. Beverly and Marina Reynolds Jackson, State Senator Shirley Turner, Governor Phil Murphy, and President Donald Trump. So it's not just, like you say, it's more, this is going to go further. We have to follow up with the state later on, but it's going to go further than just here.
Thank you. Mr. Hayes.
And resolution number 20-82 is a late addition to the docket, a resolution calling for a forensic audit in the Department of Water and Sewer. The next 7 resolutions are being presented by the Department of Administration.
About the resolution to have a forensic audit for the Department of Water and Sewer. I don't have that electronically, but are we gonna roll call? That's gonna be roll call?
It was added to there, and all of you should have gotten it electronically before this evening.
Yeah, I don't have it.
But we can roll call that, right?
Okay, and if not, I believe copies were left on the.
It's in your agenda. It's not in there.
Oh, the copy is on the.
It's a copy somewhere.
Okay, oh, I see, yeah.
Oh, yes, we were originally gonna be out there.
Okay.
That's probably is. Unless you get. So we will roll call 20-82.
Yes.
Mr. Cruz?
Good evening, Council. Adam Cruz, Business Administrator, Department of Administration. I have several items on the docket that I'd like to present to Council. The first one is 20-47, and is for the resolution appointing Township Newton as the tax collector for the city of Trenton. It gives me great pleasure to announce that Ms. Newton is very qualified to be our tax collector. She has a very long background in being a tax collector in other municipalities, including the Township of Edison, Red Bank, Borough of North Plainfield, in Highland Park, and Jersey City. So she's here today. If you would like to hear from her. So if you would like to come and say a few words.
I just wanted everybody to get a chance to meet you because they probably haven't, because I met you just on your way out of the door last week, and so I just would like the body to be able to recognize who the administration is bringing on when they do bring them. So we appreciate you. I don't, frankly,
I'm here for anything, any questions you have.
I don't have any questions for you right now, but I did appreciate the piece of legislation you pushed forward about being able to address the tax issues with the residents before it goes into foreclosure and be able to set up a plan with the residents before they lose their
Absolutely.
homes. So I really appreciate that piece of legislation that you put forward.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Vaughn.
Yes, so welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Robin Vaughn. I represent the West Ward here in the city of Trenton. And are you a native Trentonian?
No.
No. Are you planning on relocating to our capital city?
It's possible.
Okay, very good. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next resolution on the docket is 20-49, and it's for a resolution authorizing contract with Majestic Oil Company. This is for number 2 fuel oil. The number 2 fuel oil is actually used for heating, and this is actually going to be used in the water department and sewer for the buildings there. And it's also coming out of their budget. It's just that it's from the Department of Administration because the purchasing department falls under administration. Resolution 20.
Another
Yes, sir.
question. Are you starting to contemplate switching the use of oil for solar panels or any other type of renewable energy?
We have actually had discussions about solar panels.
Not on top of the roof of the building.
Well, you asked me, how we contemplate it. So my answer is yes, we have. We have looked into the options of solar energy for the city, not just for those buildings, but other buildings that belong to the city and other public entities throughout the city as well. Those conversations have been had. As far as the number 2 heating oil, we all know our buildings are very old, and eventually we need to pump in a lot of money, specifically in water, in the utilities. There are large pieces of equipment there that need our attention, and that may be something that we may be considering in the somewhat near future. Yes. The other resolution, let me make sure I'm not. The other resolution is 20-50. It's a resolution awarding a contract extension to Riggins Incorporated, and that is for the furnishing and delivery of unleaded octane gasoline. And that actually is very self-explanatory. It's actually for the gasoline that is being used in all of our city vehicles for all of the departments: fire, police, solid waste, streets, sewer, and water. And so that is an amount not to exceed $261,782.
I have a question.
Yes.
President Black, thank you. So what is the policy? I've heard of stories of city workers or people affiliated with the city using the city gas station, for lack of a better word, excessively. What policies do we have that can stop excessive use of gas by city employees? I'm thinking of a person who works in the mayor's office who doesn't even have a car. He has he uses a city car 24 hours a day, and basically gets free gas. And I'd like to know, what are we doing to stop that?
So as far as the policy is concerned, if the individual is working on special tasks, that's probably when he was issued, a vehicle for 24-hour use.
So what kind of,
I would have to know, I would have to know the individual. I know we can't say it here. I mean, it's a conversation we need to have off record so that we can address it.
No, but for the record, Mr. Cruz, what is the statute? Because there is a statute that says that our employees should be essential employees. What is the statute? You can't talk about that off the record. We have to talk about that here on the record.
Correct.
Where we can understand what the statute says and who it applies to. And, I don't think that we need to point any individual out. We just need to talk about the entire scope of that statute and try to address Councilman Blakely's concerns, and Councilman Michelle has had these concerns too. So we need to talk about the statute. Let's first start there.
let me follow up on that question, because I think that's a really important one. I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to discuss this. So in my job, I do a lot of driving, right? So I have to complete an Excel spreadsheet. Some of the transportation is taxable, some of it is non-taxable. So there's I have to put in every single time that I am coming and going, where am I going, how many miles am I going, because it's all a part of my compensation. It's taxable. Some of it is taxable. And so I'd like to know, do we have employees who work for the city who have a city car? Are they completing this type of work so we can ascertain how exactly they're using their vehicle? So I'm only paid, I actually have to provide evidence in terms of receipts to show that, hey, I'm spending this money on gas, this is where I'm traveling. This is not like an honor system, because we're spending, my expense checks could be $1,500 a month. So we're talking about a lot of money for transportation. So can you explain to me what the reimbursements are?
As far as
All right, so someone has to take their medicine.
all right, so as far as reimbursement, it's actually the reimbursements are actually based on the federal rate.
Yes.
That is given to employees. If there is a reimbursement, if it's work related travel, training, or meetings outside of the city, those are given, as I mentioned, through the federal rate. That is.
But is there a form that you guys have to submit?
Yes. Well, there is a form. If what you're talking about specific people, you're talking about people getting reimbursed for using their personal vehicles.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly.
Right. So yes, they will have to submit a form that shows the distance, and then based on the distance, and that's how we get reimbursed.
But what about for are we tracking per trip? Trips.
So it's two different things.
Yeah, I'm asking.
So the first one that you addressed was actually a city employee with a city issued vehicle. The other one was personal use of a personal vehicle for work-related travel. When it comes to city issued vehicles, individuals that are on call or emergency calls on 24 hours, those individuals are given a vehicle to respond, should something happen, or something is happening. Those individuals are given vehicles. When it comes to travel,
But I guess what I'm asking for the former group that you're talking about, how are we?
Former group, as in your personal vehicle.
No, not your personal vehicle.
The city vehicle.
The city vehicle.
Yes.
How are we tracking exactly how they are utilizing? So I want to make sure that we're mitigating abuse of city workers using city vehicles for non-city related issues, right? That's what I'm trying to get to the base of. And so.
So I'll backtrack a little more. When this administration came into play, there was no tracking of anything. There is no system in place. There is no software in place. The city has recently entered. The city has entered recently into a contract where we are now going to have vehicles logged in, where it's going to show the type of maintenance that they require. And also tracking mileage and all of that. But right now, there is nothing in place or had been in place, since I don't know how many years.
We should
But at
change
least
that.
since I've been here, there's no actual tracking of
And
mileage or maintenance, preventive maintenance, like all of that stuff.
And so my concern is that when there's no mechanism for tracking that, then that means it's ramp for, we're spending a lot of money. We're spending $250,000 on just on this kind for gas for city vehicles. And so I think it's prudent that we have protections in place to ensure that folks are using their travel, using their city vehicles in a way that they're not using it for their own personal use or abusing the privilege of having a city car.
Right.
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Councilman Michelle.
I have,
Councilman Michelle.
In regards to that, there is an ordinance in place. And the problem is it's not enforced. Right? Being a police officer all these years, our own police department lets these vehicles go out. If you're on call, you should take the vehicle with you if you're on call. These are perks. You're giving a perk out to a brand new car for them people to take the cars home. What do they need a brand new car to go home for when our police department don't have the cars to fight crime out on the streets? But all the bosses got brand new cars. All your supervisors got brand new cars. That's how it's been, and I was on 40 years. That's how it's been, it hasn't changed. There's an ordinance out there that we shouldn't be letting these cars out of the city. I have a house in LBI, and there's a car in LBI, which is an hour away, that they take home. Who pays for the gas? Who pays for the maintenance on the cars? It's been brought up to every administration, and I'm in 11 years, and nothing's been done yet. You got the city cars taken home. They're going out grocery shopping. Who's going to enforce it? You can have all this on the books, and if nobody enforces it, it's not going to be done. In your hands, you do a lot of work. This is a full-time job where all your directors should have a status on these cars. You don't give cars out. They're given out every day. These cars are all over the city. At night, on a Friday night, you could track our cars down right into a bar. There was accidents up in Pennsylvania that they kept under the covers. What was he doing with a car in Pennsylvania? And they smashed it up. Let this out to the public. Either we stop it or stop crying about it. We got it on the books. What are we going to do about it? This has been going on 11 years that I'm in office, and nothing's been done. This is unbelievable. And Jarrell's got a good point here, but the point is, we do have it on the books, and nothing's done about it. It starts with the administration. Who's the director? And stop it. Stop these cars going home on a Friday night special. They're taking our brand new cars out and going out of town with their families to events and shopping. And that's in stone, because I follow them.
President Wright, I just want to say on the record, he said that I had a good idea.
Far between, bro.
I know.
Far between.
Well, there's
But
a
I'll
start.
back you on this. I'll back you on
There's
this.
a start. I just want
I'll back you on that.
Mr. Cruz, about a year ago, we talked about this same subject. You said that you were starting already the process.
Correct.
But it was a year ago, and now you're saying that there's nothing yet.
So when I talked about the best practices back in October, I mentioned that there will be a new policy coming and implemented to individuals that have city issued vehicles. I know when I was in New York and I had a vehicle, I had to pay taxes. So I had to pay taxes for the vehicle I was issued in New York, and that policy doesn't exist here. That's something that we will be implementing here. Mayor is on board with it, and so
Could
is
you say that again,
the
please?
chief of staff. So I'm sorry.
You said pay taxes on it?
Yes,
Pay taxes
you pay
on what?
taxes on the vehicle that you are issued.
Councilman Santiago is finished. Are you done, Councilman? Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you, Council President. I just wanted to follow up on a statement that Councilman Southwood, George Michelle, asked or referred to. and I'm interested in knowing the answer to it, around enforcing ordinances and enforcing the city code and the laws that this city is governed under. Now, I want to know which entity or which individual is responsible for, by law, and if our council attorney, Mr. Kaloji, can school us or educate all folks in this room, the citizens of the city of Trenton, the council that represent them, as to who in this city who's legally responsible for enforcing the ordinances that Mr. Michel alluded to. Mr. Kaloji?
Well, I'm referring to NJSA 40:69A-40. It lists the duties of the mayor, and subsection A says the mayor shall, and subsection A, enforce the charter and ordinances of the municipality and all general laws applicable thereto. So largely it's under the mayor through the different departments.
Yeah. So I just want to be clear and on the record that the mayor, by law, that's Mayor Regus Yor, the gentleman that the city elected, that he is responsible for enforcing these laws. So, Mr. Cruz, so I would appreciate, the next time you come in front of the body and these type of issues are raised, that folks are violating, policies and procedures of the city, that the mayor makes some type of statement or around, what type of penalties or what is he doing to enforce these rules of procedures and the laws. Because I don't hear anything. When Councilman Blakely discussed, you have Councilman Michel, and it just sits here, it's just crickets. And you clearly appear that you're not aware of the laws that govern this city, and you're the business administrator. So when folks are asking these questions, I should not have to ask our attorney. I would also expect you to, aggressively and proactively answer those questions as to who's responsible. Because it is the mayor, and you work for the mayor, and you are the business administrator that presides over all the departments in the city.
Not in the city.
Oh, you don't preside over all the departments in the city?
Not in the city.
I just have one more question. So can you follow?
Why are you screaming?
Oh, I'm sorry, because I want to make sure that. So I have one more question for the council attorney. So can you let us know the role, what departments of the city that the business administrator has purview over? Is there a statute that tells us departments of the city that the business administrator of a municipality under the Faulkner Act has purview over?
I'll have to do some research. I mean, I know that the statute requires that you have a Department of Administration, and I don't know, Mr. Cruz, are you considered under the local ordinances the head of the Department of Administration?
I am the head of the Department of Administration, yes. But under this charter, the way it's been, the way it's running right now, every department has a director, and all those directors report to the chief of staff, not the business administrator.
All right, this one I would have to review.
Okay,
I mean,
so,
the ordinance book,
I
unfortunately.
please, and he's saying on the record that under, I don't know what
City ordinance.
what act or city ordinance he's referring to, that all the department heads report to the chief of staff, who's not even an elected official. I want to know, is that even illegal? I mean, illegal.
I'll be happy to research the issue.
I just want to say about this particular resolution and about the policies as it relates to reimbursement of travel. It may be prudent for us to, instead of giving them a car, just reimbursing them according to the IRS mileage rate. Like, we could save tens of thousands of dollars in gas and purchasing cars, and then we could really cut down on any fraud, because if you were to submit a form stating that you did travel on behalf of the city, that you didn't do travel on behalf, but that's fraud, and you that you can get in a lot of trouble for that. And so I think it may be a really good idea to, sell some of these cars, severely curtail the use of gas, and just pay a flat rate so that we can save some money. Because as you said so yourself, you acknowledge that there's no mechanisms to stop fraud. It's like the Wild Wild West. And so I hope that we consider it.
So, so Madam President, for the record, I just wanna clear the record that Councilwoman Vaughn never may ask me the question. She went directly to your legal advisor for the answer. So when she says that I don't know the answer, that is totally incorrect. The question was not proposed to me. Other things is that when council asks questions, they tend to go from one question to the next. I try to address them as they come, and then if I get cut off by another council person, I don't complete the answer. So if you guys want to, if the council members will allow me, if the questions are proposed, I would appreciate it if I'm given the time for me to address each question and not be cut off by another council person. I give courtesy to the council when I'm speaking, and so then I just sit back and let the other council speak. But I don't appreciate here being thrown under the bus for questions that were not put in front of me. So, thank you.
Yes, definitely.
For the record, he's not talking about me.
Excuse me, can we move on this?
The next resolution is 20-51, resolution award a contract to competitive contracting process, Mercer County Alcoholism and Drug Addiction, to provide employee assistance for the City of Trenton employees for a period of 2 years with an option to extend for a third. This is actually a contract is also again self-explanatory. We provide services to employees that would ask for assistance if they have a drug addiction or alcohol problem. Next resolution, 20-52, resolution rejecting proposals received by legal services representation for the city council members for the city of Trenton. The RFPs came back to the city, and they ran the 60-day time frame right out, and there was no decision as to who should be reviewing these RFPs. It's the will of the council as for us to put them back out to bid again. We could, but a decision is to be made who will be in charge of making these, who needs to review them. Resolution 20-53, resolution rejecting proposals received for technical support services. Madam President, at the agenda review, it was recommended that the city went for a shorter period of time for the contract. Originally, we went out for a 3-year contract with an option for a 4th and a 5th year. The request of the council was that we should consider going into perhaps a maximum of 3 years. So this is why we are asking that we're asking the council to reject the bids, and we are going to be going out again for only a 3-year contract period. And the next, the same one.
So,
yes.
So, Mr. Fusion, you said you would be going out for the 3 years. So, would it be 2 with
2 and 1? Yes.
2 and 1.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And the last resolution on the docket for the Department of Administration, Madam President, is 2081, resolution authorizing a 3-month extension awarded to FCC Consulting, which is the current IT company that the city has, and because of the cancellation of the RFP,
Right.
we now have to do an extension on their
You have to do an
contract.
extension
Correct.
until you put out the other RFP.
Correct. And which should
because-
give us, right, it should give us enough time for us to be able to go out to bid again, grade them again, and come before this council to award it
Do
to the.
everybody have that 20-81?
No.
Give me up on the dice.
They're on.
I have it.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman.
I just have a question. This is for you, Council President. And the city clerk, I'm just totally just at loss as to why no one has told me that the chief of staff is managing all the department heads. Why wasn't I informed of that, Council President?
Well, first of all, Councilwoman Vaughn, this is the first that I'm hearing, because in the prior years to me being on council, the business administrator, you want me to answer it?
Yes.
Okay, so in my prior years of being on council, my experience was always that the business administrator was the head of all departments. This is the first time that I'm ever encountering this, and this is the first time that I'm hearing this. So, you know, I'm perplexed myself, because from my past experience in 2010 and 2014 being on the council, the business administrator, which was Mr. Hutchinson, he was in charge of all of the departments across the board. So, you know, I don't have, you know, why this administration is doing something different. You would have to talk, you know, get that answer from the mayor, because I don't have that answer.
Well,
You know.
I'm just saying, I'm just making it on the record here. This is clearly against the Faulkner Act.
Well,
I'm not going to even say that. I just need Mr. Kaloji to come back
Yes,
to this
exactly.
council.
President, right?
No.
This is literally in the code. I'm looking at the code right now
She
about
went
the
to the,
business
no,
administrator.
she went to the attorney. Let Mr. Kaloji give her an explanation, please.
Fair enough,
Please.
fair enough.
Let the attorney clear that up.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Harris, would you continue with the next department?
Next resolutions are from the Department of Law. Is anyone going to speak for Mr. Morales, or?
I can, if you please, Council President.
Yes. Yes.
Concise presentations.
So on behalf of the John Morelli, the director is Peter Cohen, Assistant City Attorney.
Correct. What is that?
2054, 2055, and 2056.
Not
So resolution number 2054 is a resolution authorizing a settlement of a civil action in the matter of Kashmir Robinson versus the city of Trenton in the total amount of $20,000.
That is correct. Sean Williams, one of our assistant city attorneys, has been defending the city, so we've been defending it in-house. Consequently, there are no outside counsel fees involved. Plaintiff's counsel fees, because it's not a fee-shifting case. It's a slip and fall in front of a building, and there was a tree root caused upheaval of the sidewalk, and someone tripped and sustained Achilles ACL tear, Achilles tendon tear, significant injury. The co-defendant, commercial property owner, is covering $27,000, and the city would be contributing $20,000 to a total $47,000 settlement of the case, and would be including counsel fees and costs. Rashawn attached to his explanatory memo. So the next resolution, 2055, authorizing amendment to the contract of office of Florio, Kenny, and Ravel.
I have a question on that one.
Sure.
Is this the law firm that's representing the mayor in the lawsuit that he has filed in Superior Court against the council president and myself?
Yes. That is the major case that he's handling right now. They do handle other cases, but that is the major case that they are handling. And the city attorney has pledged that
For $35,000?
$35,000 for the remainder of the fiscal year. He had already expended $25,000. I don't know that it's was exclusively on this lawsuit, because I know that they've been handling other cases for the city for several years. My understanding is that the city attorney has also pledged to provide out of law department, out of the budgets, representation for both council president and yourself, councilwoman, and that's those contracts would be presented when we secure those resolutions. And it's my understanding on the next resolution, it's an amendment to the contract with Inglesino, Webster, Viscala, and Taylor. They've been handling a number of different cases for the city, but they're also going to be retained to represent council president in defense of that same lawsuit. And the mayor and we know that it's a time-consuming case.
I support them 1,000%.
It's not gonna change anything. Still represent who she represents.
The next resolutions are from the Department of, I'm sorry.
Can we go back to 2081 and roll call on that one?
2081,
2081.
Won't change it.
roll call 2081.
Just like the complaint based me.
It's the extension for the FCC.
You don't have
Oh,
to
for
go
the,
on.
for the IT department.
You don't have to go on. It changed.
The resolution for the IT department, is there anyone here that can, explain that to the councilman?
I can explain that.
No, it's not. I'm intending to vote no. I voted no the last time when they extended it.
No, I just wanted someone to explain it because, they just told me that the police director had agreed to hire 2 of their people because of the radio room, and that's why I thought maybe you might want to have that information. Yeah, what?
What was your question?
Oh, no, I would just want to, I asked to roll call 2081.
Right, and I thought that
Authorizing the extension,
he should be given,
but that had
some
nothing to
background
do with.
information about what was going on with that IT department.
But he said that and it says it in the resolution, that they're in the process of getting
right, procuring
another contract or whatever.
Right.
They are in the middle, I read that. It's just, I asked for it to be roll call because I'm gonna vote no. Because I believe no. The first one said you approve.
The next 2 resolutions are being presented by the Department of Police under the directorship of Director Coley. Captain Barr is present in her behalf.
Good evening, council members, council president.
Good evening.
Tonight, we have two items on the docket. First one is 20-58, and that is a resolution authorizing a contract to PCMG through New Jersey State Contract number M0003-89854 in amount not to exceed $120,000. That contract is being sought to replace a number of desktop computers in our department, as well as a number of servers that were recently affected. The servers run our computer-aided dispatch systems, our record management systems, our internal affairs records, and our evidence collection software. The next one is 20-59. That's a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the fiscal year 2019 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance. That is a $104,000 grant that we've been given. Again, as long as it's accepted, that we are looking to purchase additional body-worn cameras with, range equipment, ballistic shields, and vehicle-mounted license plate readers.
I have a question about a recent issue that's been in the news, since we're talking about technology in the police department. Are you familiar with the facial recognition technology that's been in the news? The New York Times had an article about it. Associated Press had an article about it, about the use of facial recognition technology by police departments around the country to use online photos to identify suspects. There's been a lot of debate about it. It's been a lot of angst around its use. There was just actually today this article came out regarding New Jersey's use, and the Attorney General said some things about it. And I'd like to know if we are using that technology in Trenton, and do we have any plans to use that technology in the city of Trenton?
We currently are not using that, and if I believe what you're speaking about is a company that's actually called Clearview.
Exactly.
And where they got their images from, I believe, is like you said, it's all online images and that kind of thing. We as a department do not utilize that. The state police, I believe, does utilize some type of technology, but I believe that the data that they get basically comes from other state departments. So they're not taking it or offline. And I believe the Attorney General also issued a directive basically stating that we're not to utilize any of that stuff until it's been investigated.
Thank you.
I had a question for you because I really wanted the director to be here because over I think the last 4 days, I don't know how many shootings we've had in the city, but what I do know is that the home invasion, the shooting on Oliver, and I believe it's Oliver and the Coolidge, so Oliver and West Trenton. I'll just put it like that because I don't know the two streets. I don't know what intersection Eisenhower was it Oliver and Eisenhower or Oliver and Coolidge. I don't know where the intersection comes in at for the shootings. But on Friday there was 3 shootings. Up earlier during the week there was a home invasion, and on Sunday, was it Sunday? There was it Sunday or Saturday? I believe it was Sunday where they had a standoff on Middle Road Street.
The standoff was actually on Saturday.
On Saturday.
Yes, ma'am.
It started on Saturday to 11 o'clock. And so during all of this, we didn't hear anything. First of all, the council was never informed. We were never informed of any of the incidents. And second, no one addressed the public. And so, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here where the public don't get any information, the council doesn't get any information. I had to call the city to let them know that there was a standoff on Middle Road Street and no one knew. So, the police director, she needs to come to us and give us something, some type of plan. We haven't had a plan here. What is the plan? I mean, the worst type of violation is when someone goes into a person's home. I mean, when you can't be safe into your own home, 5 square miles of land, 7 with the water, this is outrageous. It's outrageous, and we need to discuss that. And I don't think that needs to fall on you. It needs to be addressed to the director.
Yes, ma'am. Well, just as far as the police department goes, we every day we look at what happened for the last 24 hours, the last 72 hours. And our intelligence is constantly looking at everything that's going on, the people that are involved in it, and we do everything that we can to try and prevent, but unfortunately we can't prevent everything that happens. But we are we've got our noses to the grindstone.
Because I'm like, we, accepted the director here with open arms. She's coming from Newark, one of the largest cities on the East Coast, and we're dealing with 5 square miles here. I mean,
Well, I got a question.
Councilman.
I just want to say for the record that much of this violence has been taking place in the West Ward, and that my heart goes out to the residents of the West Ward. I've been talking to residents and community. I'm telling you that I understand that. I totally understand that. But I have been reached out to by several community groups in the West Ward who feel under siege in their community. And I just want those folks to know that I am with them, and I'm thinking about them, and I'm working with them, and that they have a council member who is really, really, really working to make sure that their issues are addressed. And I just want to put that on the record. Thank you.
Councilwoman Vaughn.
Yes, well, I want to follow up with Councilman Blakely's assistant. So he says that most of the shootings
I didn't
have
say
been
that.
happening
I never
in
said
the
that.
West Ward.
I didn't say that. That's not true.
Did I not hear that?
You didn't. Well, you must not hear it correctly because I didn't say that.
So,
I didn't say
maybe I'm quoting him incorrectly.
You are.
So where are the percentages of the shootings happening, Mr. Vaughn?
I don't have that information with me.
Okay. Now, just for the record, I have total confidence in this, in the police director. We all unanimously voted her in, and she's extraordinarily qualified. And if we're going to call her out for living outside of these borders, whether it's in Newark or any other,
Nobody said anything about her getting
She's
No,
hearing
no.
things.
Excuse me.
you
Oh,
said
sorry. I apologize.
you mentioned that she lives in Newark. You mentioned
No,
that.
I said she came from a
From Newark.
large city such as
Okay.
Newark,
Okay.
and we're only
Okay.
5 square miles.
Okay.
I was comparing
Okay.
the population size and the size, the
Okay.
land
Very well.
size.
Very well. So, my bad.
It's okay.
So, again, I have total confidence in the police department. Although, I must say, I, for one, received a death threat from who knows who in the city around my own seat here on council. And I have gone to the police department to have that investigated. And I was threatened that I should quit my seat, or otherwise bad things are going to happen to me. And I still haven't gotten an outcome from that investigation. So when we sit here and talk about crimes that happen in the city, this administration cannot even investigate or locate a simple IP address, let alone someone who, here we are, 21st century technology. My nephew can track down an IP address. So I don't know what this administration is doing, but I know at the end of the day, it begins and ends with Mayor Reed Guscior. And he, based on the law of this land, New Jersey state statute, he's supposed to enforce these ordinances and enforce these laws and manage these directives. And I want some answers, Council President and Mr. Kaloji, and hopefully we get these answers, and we gotta find a way to get this mayor to act and start instituting, enforcing these laws. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Councilwoman Vaughn. Mr. Harris, is there anything?
Thank you.
Resolutions, the next two resolutions were from the Division of Finance, which is under the Department of Administration, Mr. Cruz.
I'll take those. Resolution, Madam President, Resolution 20-61, resolution extending the timeframe of the contract awarded to Remington and Vernick Engineers. This actually is an engineering contract for the maintenance of the tax map. There is no increase in additional funding. They're still working on the map. And so, we ask that the council allow them to continue with the same amount, that was awarded, prior, for an additional year. The other resolution is resolution 20-62. It's actually a resolution authorizing an emergency appropriation of the fiscal year 2020 temporary budget of the city of Trenton, current funds $1.5 million. As you are all aware, the budget has not been adopted, and we are going to continue to see these as we continue during the year until a budget is adopted. The majority of the breakdown on the resolution is as follows. Administration operating expenses, $218,000.
I have a question on that. $218,000. I thought the budget, the whole budget for the whole year of the Department of Administration was less than that for operational expenses.
So there are several other items here that fall under the Department of Administration, if you just allow me to continue with the breakdown. And then I can come back to your question. Administration operating expenses, $218,000. That is actually for legal services, and that has to do with the personnel contracts that are being handled currently by a couple of law firms. Public Defender's Office is the operating expenses, $150,000, and that is actually due to additional sessions that the city has to put in place because we had a huge backlog on drunk driving. We were actually the worst in the county. Now we are at the top, so we are actually took the proactive measures, and we are actually the probably one of the best in the county when it comes to these drunk driving sessions. Also, there is money of that $150,000. There is money also for temporary services for individuals that are used on a needed basis at the court. There's also a $50,000, and that $50,000 is actually for a payment for Westside Plaza, is the building that the city owns and currently continues to pay monthly. Miscellaneous operating expenses, $934,000, which is actually the biggest chunk of this request. It's actually for the IT contract. We wanted to certify the entire amount because it's actually for the entire year. And so that's the reason why you're seeing the entire amount now, $934,000. And the other one is $150,000 for unemployment, for the unemployment people filing for unemployment. Yes.
Well, you said there were other things that were under the $218,000. You mentioned legal services.
Yes.
Besides legal services.
This is right.
$250,000 for legal services for the administration, for the mayor.
But there are the administration for what, I'm sorry?
You said administration, OE.
Yes, operating expenses, yes. So, right, so
Besides
the department.
besides the law department that we have, that we agreed to have more attorneys in the paralegal.
So as you are, if you allow me to answer the question, you mentioned attorneys that the city is bringing in. As of right now, we haven't had any attorneys actually. The new attorneys that were recommended to be hired, they are not on they're not working as of yet, and so we continue to rely on outside attorneys.
So those attorneys that were here are part of this money. Florio.
No, this is actually for just personnel matters for employees that are actually for employees that have current pending matters, but it's not the Kenny and Florio or anything else.
I agree with Councilman Rodriguez here with this issue, with this line item for attorneys, because I thought all attorneys were sourced through the law department, and for personnel, for human resources, we have a whole slew. I think we have at least 10 law firms on retainer and Mr. Cohen, you can speak to this, on retainer that does employment and labor law.
Yeah.
So why would the department administration be sourcing their own legal services when the law department is responsible for doing that for the entire city? And we have attorneys on retainer that specializes in that area of expertise, employment and labor law. So, Mr. Cohen, can you help us out here?
Sure.
The
Most of
funding.
outside law firms are retained through the law department for a whole spectrum of different cases and specializations. There are employment law attorneys that are also affiliated with those firms, with those outside firms that are working through the law department. But there are also, based on my knowledge, 2 firms that are working directly through administration that are handling exclusively labor matters and some employment-related matters. For example, the Raynone firm is handling all labor negotiations, and they work under the auspices and direction of administration, Department of Administration. The firm of Trimboli is handling all the police disciplinary cases and related lawsuits. And Mr. Trimboli is a master specialist in handling police disciplinary cases. And he's done a phenomenal job of moving those cases and breaking up the gridlock that we had for a couple of years. Those are moving forward. It's essential that we have Trimboli's firm handling those cases because it maintains a disciplinary system that is absolutely essential for the police department and for the city. And that without prosecuting those cases, we would have much greater exposure in civil lawsuits, including under what they call Monell claims.
Now the Raynone law firm, I'm almost for certain that council approved a contract under the law director. And now there's 2 contracts that the Raynone law firm has with the law department and now administration? Because I know, if my memory's not failing me, that the Raynone law firm is contracted. It's one of the retained attorneys under the law firms under the law department. And I don't understand the segregation between the $218,000 that's line item for the administration for legal services when, again, the Raynone law firm is part of the retained attorney listing that we have under Mr. Morelli.
I believe they also have a contract for labor and contract negotiations. Could
Okay.
be.
I know, but my point is, Mr.
Yeah.
Cohen, who is it under should this $218,000 be in the law department or why is it in the department administration when the law department is tasked with retaining and negotiating and contracting all the legal expertise for the city that supports all the departments in the city, including administration. And now we're being told that there's some $200,000 being appropriated for legal services out of the administration department. Additional funding for a law firm that's retained in the law department. I don't get it.
Only the business is not the whole
So
year.
I think we need to reconcile that.
So it's not right.
Council
So
It's not
President,
the whole year.
Council President, we need to reconcile that line item, that's all.
Yes, I wanted to add something
Okay, I'm done.
to your statement about the emergency appropriation, and that was on Thursday. The administration had we stated that the 3 years, on a 4th year extension and a 5th year with the IT department.
Correct.
And so the administration agreed to take that, to kill that RFP because the term was too long. And once they killed that RFP, this $934,000 wouldn't be in play because you don't know how much the RFPs are
Gonna
gonna
cost.
be for the new scope of work or for the new contract or whatever they submit, the one that you select for the IT company. So you said that you were gonna take the $934,000 away because it could be more because we were cutting back into the contract, or it could be less because we are extending it for 3 months, but we have to wait for the new RFPs to come in.
Correct.
So this is why I am not clear why this $934,000 is on here, because the RFPs, the RFP is getting repealed, right?
Right. So, but in the meantime, the money that we're asking for is actually for money that will continue to be spent even during the extension of the 3 months. It's gonna be eating up from this total. And then, it's going to continue when the new contract is awarded. We're not sure what the number is going to be, but for the purpose of having the entire amount certified when the certification is attached to the resolution, we were going to certify it for the entire year and not just like 6 months or 8 months. Because I know in the past the council has had issues with not having full appropriation of the funding for the entire year.
Right, so the problem with that is for the emergency appropriation and the IT department is that it should have been some type of prorate for the 90 days.
Yes, it is prorated.
And then
yes.
because we're functioning on appropriations, this shouldn't be added here based on when the administration coming back to us within those 90 days. So I could see if you had prorated the service for the IT department, and after you prorated and determined how much that would be, then you took the balance of it to add to the appropriation that you might come before us in the next 90 days. I don't see it being here because we don't have the RFP for it. Am I making any sense here?
So if you would like, Madam President, if the wish of the council is for us to perhaps lower the amount of the 934,000 actually to just
I think that it would only, I think that
73,000 times 3, we can do that for the
Yeah, I
next 3
think it would
months,
be
and
best
then we'll
practice
revisit this
to-
when we're ready to award the contract.
yes, I think that it should be the prorated amount for the 90 days, and then when you get the new RFPs in,
We can go back
and
and
then you go back
do
because,
another emergency appropriation if the budget's not adopted by then.
exactly,
We can do that, I mean,
because because you're adding something in here that we,
right, Mr. Clark? Would that be okay to amend this amount, and keep it for the Tuesday so that it doesn't affect the rest of the other, line items?
yeah, as long as we, get the prorated amount added in and take,
We'll do a 3-month extension,
Yes.
and it'll be reflected on the amount that the company is charging us per month for the next 3 months.
yes, and then to Councilwoman Vaughn's, question, Tromboli is also on the list of contractors that we just had given an additional contract to. So, Mr. Cohen, that's the part that I need to understand. If we have given Tromboli and, we just renewed a contract with Tromboli, so why would he be included in this particular amount? Is it something, what is it?
Because, well, Tromboli isn't on the docket this week. Tromboli had a contract approved at the beginning of the fiscal year. I believe, for 75,000, which was
Right, and I think they
considerably
brought it back
less
about
than-
2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks? 2 weeks ago,
we initially had it on, but we pulled it off
Another 75.
because it hadn't been submitted to the DCA for
Oh, okay.
waiver approval.
Okay.
So we pulled it off that, but we would be, my understanding, the administration would be seeking to present another amended contract for the increase in the volume of their work in litigation and police discipline reviews. But that's not on the docket this week.
Councilman.
Mr. Cohen, out of this $218,000, these attorneys, are they being paid $175 an hour?
Yes,
It's a lot
that
of
they're all limited to 170.
hours.
And according to the RFPs, they have to conform to the hourly
It
rate.
means that they work for the city full time.
That's, yeah, that's the hour, that's a stipulation.
Okay, resolution 20-62 will be a roll call resolution because it's a revenue appropriation and it will require 5 votes of the governing body to pass.
And so, as far as the amendment go, when we get the right figures, one of us have to do the amendment on the floor. How does that work?
No, he's going to present the amended resolution. I'll either forward it off to you tomorrow if I have it, or we'll have it for you by the meeting on Thursday for your review.
I'll forward the change tomorrow to you, and then you can forward it to council. Thank you.
Next resolution is Department of Health and Human Services under the directorship of Shakira Abdul-Ali.
Good evening, Council President. Shakira Abdul-Ali.
Good evening.
So we have 3 items on the docket. The first, 20-63, is a resolution for for the Department of Recreation, Natural Resources and Culture to apply for and accept, if awarded, a grant from the Department of Community Affairs to provide support for recreational opportunities for individuals with disabilities. It's a small grant of $20,000, which I believe will be applied to ensuring that that all of the activities that are presented by the Department of Recreation and Culture will be accessible to people with disabilities. So I'm not sure exactly what those items might include, but we may be talking about things like ramps, temporary ramps to events, and other activities that would make those other items that would make those activities accessible. The second resolution is Resolution 20-64, which is a resolution to award a contract through a fair and open bid process to the Henry J. Austin Health Center. In previous years, I should note here that in previous years this bid had been these funds had been provided as a shared service. This year, DCA determined that because Henry J. Austin is not officially, I don't know exactly how they determined that, but they said officially they're not a government entity, so they're not eligible to do business with us as under a shared services agreement. So we went out for bid, and of course they were the only respondents, and so we would like to award the grant, the contract to them in the amount of $259,000.
I have a question, Council President.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman.
I would like to roll call this, and since DCA doesn't recognize them as an entity of what you just described, my understanding is that the Henry J. Austin Health Center is a private, nonprofit 501c3 organization?
It is a 501c3, and it is it is the only federally qualified healthcare center in this region.
And who is the board? Who who's the chairman of the board, I mean, who's the board of directors of this 501c3?
That I don't have that in front of me. I can get that for you.
Oh, okay, yeah, can you get the board of directors and the CEO and the COO of that organization, please?
The CEO is Dr. Kim Ali.
Oh, no, she is the,
She's the CEO.
who's the COO?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Does anyone know who the COO is?
Give me 1 second. Pulling it up.
Does anyone know who the COO and the CFO of the Henry J. Austin Center is? I'm just.
Why is it relevant?
I just want to know who it is.
I don't know. I know Dr. Kimmy Ali is
I can actually tell you who's on the board of directors. I can read it for the record. If you don't mind, President McBride. Charles Davis, Charles Davis here? Thought I saw him here.
Okay.
Beverly Ann Smith is the vice chair. Tyrone Gaskins is the secretary. Daniel Benson is the treasurer. Who's the assemblyman. Beverly Ann Smith is a teacher. Chinwezi Agatu. Detravius Bethea, who is a lawyer. Lawrence Ganges, who's the deputy former assistant commissioner of the Department of Health. Alonzo Liano. And Dakia Smith.
And,
Who's a PhD.
Okay, I'm not, thank you, Councilman Blakely. I am on the website as well, and, it says that the COO, it was Merkel Cherry. Oh, okay. The board of directors.
I would have to ask you to leave if you can't keep it quiet. I can't keep it.
The board of directors, oh, wait a minute. I just want to verify. Are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing, Councilman Blakely?
If it's the same website, I'm sure I am.
I just want to make sure, because I don't understand the relationship this organization has to the city. And I don't understand why DCA has, can you further expound on that?
So, as I said, they are the federally qualified healthcare center for this region. They are the organization that can accept Medicaid and Medicare, and they can provide the services that we need to have provided, the healthcare services. I'm talking HIV, STD testing, basic care, all the care services that we are required by law to provide statutorily. We can't provide it. We don't have the staff. So we have a relationship with a medical facility that can do that work. Okay. So that's their relationship.
So now that DCA has moved them off that list.
No, I don't think DCA moved them. I think it was just an erroneous relationship from the beginning. I don't think it should have been a shared service agreement because they are not a government entity.
Makes sense.
So we did a competitive bid. We put it out there. We advertised it. They were the only respondents, and so we would like to award the contract to them.
Yeah. So so that's under senior management is Dr. Kimmy Ali, who's the CEO. Ursa Blanc is the Director of Quality Management. Merkel Cherry is the Chief Operating Officer. Dr. Rachel Evans is the Chief Medical Officer. James Foley is the Chief Financial Officer. Lakia Ford is the Director of Education. Dr. Caitlin McCarthy is the Director of Pharmacy Services. Devin T. Goodman, Dennis MDM is the Dental Director. Mildred McIntosh, Director of Nursing. Dr. Nita Benny, Director of Transformation. Lee Resnick, Senior Director of Behavioral Health. And Director of Information Technology is TBD. So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that I understood what the relationship was and now is with this particular health organization.
Strictly a contract. Strictly a bid contract.
But it wasn't before. Do you know what date this took effect?
Which?
when DCA identified them as a non-government agency?
No, it was earlier in this fiscal year, because I initially and unwittingly intended to pursue the shared services agreement again with them, and I was corrected by DCA that no, we can't do that. So, here we are.
Okay,
I'm done.
I just want to put on the record that I think it's absolutely outrageous that we have folks that are attempting to impugn the integrity of an organization that has done so much good for this city. So much good. There are people who don't have health care, who don't have transportation, and the Henry J. Austin Health Center is their only way of having access to the type of benefits that I take for granted. And so for people to insinuate that there's something nefarious going on about this extraordinarily important health center is outrageous and shameful. I'm just appalled. Quite frankly, I'm just baffled. This is an organization doing such good work, and there is no question that it looks here. I'm looking here at the resolution. They're the only proposal that was received. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so to insinuate that there's some nefarious connection is below the dignity of the West Ward Councilwoman. And it's outrageous. These people are people, this group of people at the Henry J. Austin are talented professionals who have dedicated their professional lives to improving health outcomes for the people who live here. Thank God for them. Thank God that we have the Henry J. Austin center in this health center in this city, because if they weren't here, people would die. People would have poor health outcomes. People would be hurt. People wouldn't have access to the life-changing care that the Henry J. Austin Health Center provides.
Councilman, I can only say that I am grateful for their participation with our division. Were it not for their participation, I don't know where I would be turning to in order to try to pursue the development and implementation plan that we want to put in place to provide clinics in each of the schools. As it is at this moment, they are operating their van to ensure that we can provide immunizations to all of the kids in our schools who don't have immunizations. Many of them are undocumented. And this is a challenge because if the kids aren't immunized, the state requires that we leave them out of, that we make them stay out of school, and that's the last thing we want to do.
And it's particularly shameful that we have colleagues on this council that are impugning the integrity of a private citizen who's not an elected official, who works for Henry J. Austin. Merkle Cherry is a valuable citizen of this city, a valuable contributor to this city. In any efforts to impugn his integrity because he happens to work for a nonprofit doing amazing work in the city of Trenton is shameful. And I'm not going to sit back and allow my colleague to impugn their integrity and try to minimize the life-changing work they do in this city for so many of our underprivileged residents who don't have access to health care. Thank you.
I would just like to say this to you, Mrs. Ali. I have a problem with this money that we're giving the Henry J. Austin Health Center. And let me just say this for the record. My children and myself, we have some of the best insurance that they offer in the state of New Jersey. And I take my children to the Henry J. Austin Health Center, and I go there myself. So all of that grandstanding. But what I'm disappointed in is this. I had my children down at the Henry J. Austin Health Center, and that particular day, I took a video. I took a video of about 12 people in the Henry J. Austin Health Center that live in Yardley, that live in Hamilton, that came back to Trenton to get their medication from the Henry J. Austin Health Center. And my question to Mr. Morelli was, if we're giving them this amount of money in $259,000, and you are giving people a fee on a sliding scale, what part of that money did Hamilton contribute? What money did Ewing and Lawrence and Yardley contribute? And the answer to that was no one knows.
Right.
So bring Dr. Kimmy Ali to the table. Let her tell us who else is contributing money. Because if you are getting $259,000 from me for the residents of this city, how can you give someone from Hamilton and Yardley a sliding scale fee that doesn't affect this money?
So,
And you don't have the answer.
No,
I
I do-
want the
I have
answer
a
to come
part-
from
I do have
Dr.
a-
Kimmy Ali.
I do have a part of the answer.
And so when you bring her to the table, then I'll vote for this. If she can't come to the table, because I've asked you over the last 2 years to bring these outside entities to the table. If you can't bring them to the
So-
table, I'm not gonna vote on this. I'm not gonna vote for this, because I have a video here in my phone where people are showing their identification from other municipalities getting service, and we're the only municipality forking over
so
money.
let me just say that there is absolutely no way that our city could afford to pay for
That's
the
not
service.
what-
Yes, it is.
No,
It's
what I
rel-
asked you was to bring Dr. Kimmy Ali to the
I
table,
will-
so
I'm
let
happy
me
to do
find
that,
out
but I need
how
to state
that
for the
sliding
record.
scale.
I need to
This-
state for the record
this is
here
the
that the
record.
$259,000 that we give them annually really only covers a portion, a tiny portion.
It doesn't matter if it covers 1%. What I'm saying to you is the fact that we are giving up money and no other municipality is. I need Dr. Kimmy Ali to the table, because somebody needs to explain to me how that sliding scale fee works that doesn't include the money that we're bringing to the table. And
I'm
so,
happy to do that.
Mr. Blakely, that's the question that I'm
happy to
asking
do that.
Mrs. Shakira Ali, and I'll be satisfied when we get the real answer.
President, Ms. Ali, I'm
Yes.
looking at their 990 form. The internet is such a fascinating institution, system, because you can just look it up and look up the information. I'm looking at their 2016 990 form, IRS form. And it states that their total revenue, let's see, is $14.1 million. That's what they're told. That was what their total revenue in 2016 was, right? And so,
And so does it tell
I
so
got the
does
floor.
it tell you the breakdown?
Well,
Does it
it
tell
doesn't-
you?
Does it tell you
does
that's all HUD?
No,
They tell you that's all HUD
can
money?
I finish?
Government,
Can I finish? Can I finish?
taxpayer dollars? Does it tell you
That
that?
question is not valid.
No,
I
but
want
how
to
can my
see.
question be? Let's
I
let me-
want your explanation.
It's all HUD
I'm
money.
asking a question.
I
I'm
want
asking
to
a-
see
I have the floor.
Dr. Kimmy Ali. I didn't
No,
give it
no,
to
no,
you.
you just talking
No,
to me. That's
I
why I
did
just
not.
said
I
it.
did not yield to you.
President McBride.
I didn't.
Do I have the floor now?
Go right ahead, but
Thank you. So the point is, they get $14 million to do the work that they do. Of course, for $259,000, it's not going to be all Trenton residents. I mean, that's just common sense. I mean, that's like, I mean,
So you don't.
so my point is, let me continue. So they get grants because, quite frankly, many of the residents, they take a lot of residents that don't have insurance, correct, right? Could you elaborate on that?
Well, if somebody comes there, we require, that's part of our agreement with them, that if somebody from the city of Trenton comes to them, they say, I live in Trenton, and they don't have ID, they don't have insurance, they have nothing, they are required to provide them with STD testing, HIV testing, and any other basic healthcare service.
And so
That's what we require in our contract. So
and so
that $259,000 is really just, it's just a small offset of what they provide in service.
And so we live in a city that is one of the poorest cities in this state. one of the poorest, has the lowest per capita income, has low wealth, has high rates of STDs, high rates of obesity, high rates of, particularly in a lot of parts of our city, is a food desert. So we have a population that is extraordinarily challenged. We have a high population of folks who don't have insurance. And so that's why the Henry J. Austin Health Center exists in Trenton and not in Princeton and not in West Windsor. Because quite frankly, their population does not have the challenges that we have here. And so, I mean, just look in Trenton, look around. And you're wondering why the Henry J. Austin Center is here and not on Nassau Street? So to impugn the integrity of this institution that is literally saving lives, that is giving health care to people who don't have it, and then we have colleagues that, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, President McBride, that are taking videos of a place that is doing work and upset that people on the outside are using it. This is for the people who can't get to Yardley, who can't get to Hamilton, who can't get to these places. I want to ask another question. Is this money exclusively for services rendered to Trenton residents?
No, because the service, I mean, the money is fungible. I mean, it's like the money that we collect for marriage licenses and birth and death certificates, and you know, when we go and do collect fees from restaurants. I wish our department could keep all that money. We don't. It goes into the general fund. It's fungible, and I imagine that the same is true for Henry J. Austin.
Which makes sense. Which makes a lot of sense.
So if my taxpayers is paying the money, then yes, I am concerned that the money is being used on Trentonians. And if someone from Lawrence or Hamilton needs some care, they have Robert Wood Johnson, which has a clinic. They have other facilities that have clinics. They have Hopewell Valley Hospital that has a clinic federally funded by the hospital and some outside funding. All of those facilities have clinics that they can visit. What I'm saying to you is when Trenton forks over the taxpayers' money in this city, I want it used on the Trentonians. So yes, I do have a problem with it. And yes, if you're yielding a Lawrence Hamilton ID, a Yardley ID, then I'm going to say to you, you need to visit that nearest location in your city. And the fact that we're forking over the money, and I want to know who else is being brought to the table to help offset these fees. I have a problem with it.
Who's offsetting the 14 million?
$14 million.
Offsetting, you don't know where it's coming from, please.
Right.
So you don't know where it's coming from,
Medicaid,
Mr. Blakely.
Medicare.
So my point is, if it comes from the city of Trenton, I want the residents from the city of Trenton to be the ones that benefit from that. They're the taxpayers. That is my point. That's why I said Dr. Kimmy Ali needs to be brought to the table, because we need to see what other municipality is helping shoulder their expenses. And if it's none, then we need to also identify those clinics and those other hospitals that those other.
$259,000 is not really
it's from the taxpayers,
It is
Shakira.
from the taxpayers.
So
and
you
it
don't
is
have the right to make that decision.
We reduced staff. They are covering for staff people that we no longer have. That's where that 250, and there, I mean, I created a memo that showed you that we're saving. It's more than $350,000 at this point, because that number came from a few years ago. That's what they are saving us. That is the number that was given to DCA when they were operating as under a shared service agreement arrangement. DCA required us to tell them how much money are they saving you by you having a contract with them. It's over $350,000 a year.
President McBride.
I beat this dead
The
horse,
President,
and no. I beat this dead horse. I've asked for
I'm
Shakira
happy to
Ali
bring her.
to
I
bring
just
to
have
come
one,
to the
I just
table,
have
but
one
I'm
last
done.
question
No, we're gonna
for the
move
law
on.
department. Just for the law department, regarding the shared service agreement that was eliminated, with our city. So, I guess, I mean, I guess the Henry J. Office Center is in our borders, and because it's federally funded, primarily federally funded, I guess people from the county should be able to come in. It's federally funded. It's within our congressional district, right? Those other municipalities in Mercer County is represented by our Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, who probably facilitates getting that HUD money into the center. And I just wanted to understand, Mr. Cohen, how does a shared service agreement across municipalities gets initiated, and how does it get terminated? Who terminated this agreement? I mean, because the council wasn't consulted, so did the mayor terminate it? Like, who terminated this agreement, Council President? Are you aware of this termination?
DCA terminated.
I know, but why didn't DCA? This is our city. We're the governing body of the city of Trenton. When contracts come into the council and when they get terminated, we should know about it. So this is an entity that, how long have we been doing business? How long is the shared service agreement? Since when?
2014.
2014. So I'm just asking Mr. Cohen, I'm just kindly asking Mr. Cohen, can he come back to the council and just and tell us why this agreement was terminated? Why did the mayor or DCA opted to terminate this agreement with this 501c private nonprofit that was getting federal funds? I don't understand how come there aren't any. I mean, the medical industry is large and broad. I just can't understand why this has been the only nonprofit that's been applying for this RFP.
40 years.
Huh?
I believe they've been in business for
Yeah,
over
no,
40
but
years.
there are other nonprofits that provide these type of services for.
Not really. No, they
Well,
did.
all
No,
right,
they did not.
all right. So they're the only ones
They're the
who
only
would be
ones.
interested in applying. But I just want. That's all I wanted to. Mr. Cohen, if you can come back to us with that, with that information, I appreciate it.
I want to say this.
They are not the only name in the game.
No, let's move on.
I said, I want to, this is an important contract.
move on.
We spend more than
We'll move on to the
$250,000 on
next
gas,
subject.
and we got people here complaining about $250,000 on services for our most impacted residents.
Mr. Harris, let's move forward.
Yes. The last item that I have here is 2065. It is a resolution to award a contract through a fair and open process to Talia Herrera, who works in our lead program as a health aide, an amount not to exceed $30,000. $30,899. $2064. 64. Oh wait, no. My apology. It's 2065. Okay.
You next, Kristen?
Thank you, Director Ali. Yes, sir.
The next few resolutions are from the Department of Housing and Economic Development under the directorship of Benjamin Delisle.
Good evening, Council President, council members.
Good evening.
Three resolutions. The first one is a contract not to exceed $30,000 with Northeastern Bucks Company, Mulligan and Lonigan, to write a 5-year consolidated plan and an annual action plan for the city. This is with regard to our CDBG, home, and ESG funding. The 5-year consolidated plan is really a very important plan for us, and it sets out the goals and objectives, how we're going to use our funds for the next 5 years, housing, homeless, economic development. And the annual action plan, we do those once a year, which leads out the specific uses of those funds and how we address the needs identified in the 5-year plan. It's very important that we get this going now. It's due to HUD May 15th. The second resolution is to approve the neighborhood redevelopment and revitalization pilot program. This is an amendment to the previous plan, which was the urban blight reduction program. If you recall, there was $11.5 million that the state provided to the city a few years ago. We worked with the state to amend and expand that program, so it's not only for demolition of property, but it could be to acquire property, to stabilize property, with the idea that if there's adjacent blighted homes that the city doesn't own, that we could acquire them to take them down. But also we could use it for stabilization or improvements to properties as well, rather than just taking them down. So part of this is a strategic plan that's here for the council, which lays out our priorities for how we would go about it, what areas of the city. First, it would be buildings that are an immediate hazard or in danger of collapsing, particular problem properties identified by the police, criminal activity, properties that are in the gateway, the main entryways or corridors to the city, and then also some strategic redevelopment areas where we already own quite a few properties in the city from foreclosures and abandonment over the years.
Mr. Harris, could you roll call 2067?
67 will be roll call.
Yes, please. I have a question on this. The last paragraph, it says, mention the Greater Trenton, the city and Greater Trenton agree that the Greater Trenton shall be designated as the city housing sponsor. It's not economic development anymore.
Thank you, Council, for pointing that out.
At first, I like to see, because I remember that when they formed the Greater Trenton Corporation, it was to help the city bring development, bring jobs to the city, not to manage our monies.
Yeah, Councilman, this
And
is...
I have not seen a report on what is Greater Trenton doing for Trenton. Nothing. Nothing.
Councilman, this is not new. This has been part of the program since the beginning, since 2017. It's a requirement of the program with the Housing Mortgage and Finance Agency. The funding are technically loans. They're forgivable loans, but they are loans. They're not given directly to the city. Greater Trenton is the conduit. This was a requirement of the state. This is not a new requirement. But I thought it was important because we're amending this program to expand it for some additional activities. We have a revised memorandum with Greater Trenton, that you were aware of it before we acted upon it. So this is not new. It's an existing requirement. So we are still managing the program. We are managing the monies. Greater Trenton is the conduit, is a requirement of Housing Mortgage Finance Agency for the state.
I thought they were they were the ones that were doing that job before. I never saw Greater Trenton associated with it. Well, we were never informed of this.
Yeah,
they were managing the 11.5 whatever.
Yeah, they are assisting us with it. Again, the management is done with our department. We select the properties to be demolished. We hold the contract with the contractors to demolish them. We own the properties as well.
Yeah, when you started, we had approved a contract with a company that was going to demolish. It was 24, it was 25 initially, 24 properties. Mm-hmm. You said that there was something happened, and the contract is no longer, that you were going to renegotiate with another contractor, but that was a while back.
Yes.
And we had a fire this week, on Brunswick Avenue, 2 city-owned properties on fire.
On Brunswick?
Brunswick,
yeah, one of them was city-owned, 2 were in foreclosure that we're working on, and one is private.
The newspaper, because nobody tells us what's going on.
I know which ones you're talking about.
They said two properties belong to the city. And we have the 400 block of West Hamilton, 418, 420, 422, 424. They have a block there that is falling apart. And then you're telling me that you're going to use these monies because they allow you to use these monies for other purposes to help sometimes some landlords fix their facades, which is a good program, it's good, it's needed. But to me, the emergency is demolishing those structures that the fire director is here. Most of the fires we have is in those vacant buildings because of the squatters go in there and start messing around with whatever.
Sure.
And that most of the fires we have having in the city are because of that. So we should prioritize this money to be used specifically to demolish as many of those houses as possible.
Councilman, and that certainly is our priority. What this amendment does is allows some flexibility. You can imagine some properties, there's abandoned properties that are adjacent to each other. And if we don't own all of them, we can only use this money to knock down properties that we own. So what we end up being is in the position of doing sidewall repairs for vacant or abandoned properties that we don't own that are falling apart and dilapidated. We could spend $10,000 to $15,000 repairing the sidewall, which is money we could acquire and not them all out.
That's what I want to see. When it's going to start? That's it. When? I want to go down West State Street, West Hanover, and see those houses gone.
Yeah.
In South Trenton, I want to see some of them buildings gone. Everywhere, North Trenton, everywhere. They are all over. I want them out of the way, so I could go and plant a garden or something. Start a program to plant gardens all over the city.
Well, Council President,
Go right ahead, Councilman.
I just want to concur with my council at large, Santiago Rodriguez, that I'm sick of the vacant houses. And when we started, it was 1,000 houses in 1,000 days. I'm sure that number has, probably quadrupled. And I'm tired of seeing it in my ward, and I'm sure all the council at large folks are tired of seeing it across the city, and of course in the South Ward. And I just, again, just want to call it to attention that Mayor Regus-Yor is not enforcing the ordinances in the code of the city around vacant properties. And he's not holding these property owners accountable to the law, and they're all in violation. And the city and the administration is doing nothing about it. So, further, our housing inspections department has been put under Ben Delano. So, Ben, since you're in the hot seat, what is your plan going forward to remediate this issue? Have you been in talks with Mayor Regus-Yor on a plan that you can present to this council as to how you're going to remediate these vacant properties?
Councilwoman, I would disagree with you that nothing is being done. The inspection department does go out. They issue a number of citations and violations. We have the vacant property registration. So there's a lot of work being done. We don't have the resources to address it in the way that we would like to. There's certainly a lot of vacant and abandoned properties, far more than what we should have. I agree with you on that, but we are doing something. We are trying. Staff resources are very limited. That is the number one issue facing my department right now, both in inspections and in HED upstairs on the 3rd floor. To your point earlier, Councilman, next week I plan to having a contract before you to hire a construction manager to help us with the bid specifications and manage it, because we just don't have in-house resources to manage this. That is our number one struggle right now.
We approve a couple of contracts on that.
It's going to be it's the first one for construction management that you'll see regarding to demos will be next week, provided I get the waiver and everything signed but approved by DCA. The process is onerous.
Contract is a demolition contract to get rid of all these dilapidated houses.
This strategic plan is a part of it to focus on certain areas, so we're not all over the place. Demolitions are running $40,000 at a minimum. We'll spend 11.5 real fast at $40,000 a clip. So it's to prioritize certain areas so that we will set them up for redevelopment, so we don't just knock down houses randomly around the city. Also, the priority areas, the entryways to the city, the main corridors or gateways, the view of the city when you're coming in.
And I just wanted to finish my last question. I just want to loop in the fire director, Derek Sawyer, on this. So have you been, because of the fire that happened, right? So what is your position and your plan and aligning with the housing inspections director on making sure that these property owners and these properties are compliant with the code and the fire codes, so that our city and our people are safe?
Did you want to answer?
I want Mr. Sawyer to answer that question as to what your plan is as the fire chief to ensure that you're working with the housing inspectors to make sure that these properties are properly coded and that the fire codes are being enforced, so that these properties aren't going up in smoke and putting people's lives at risk.
Well, my plan is to reinstitute a fire prevention division if it's allowed, so that we can do some code enforcement. So right now, the Trenton Fire and Emergency Services don't even have a fire prevention unit to go out and enforce codes and regulations. And right now, that purview comes under the state of New Jersey. So DCA is the authority having jurisdiction for code enforcement. But if you talk to Mr. Bilal, we work hand in hand on all issues related to housing and development, code enforcement, and inspection. So we're doing the best we can do with the resources we have. Again, if I'm allowed to reinstitute a fire prevention division, I can guarantee you that we can do a better job as far as code enforcement in the city of Trenton.
President Bragg. I just think it's rich in irony that my colleagues are asking you all what you're doing when we had an abandoned property on the block that I live on in the East Ward, the Princetown project and the Roebling building, that my colleagues have allowed to stay empty. That is a haven for crime, for a possibility of a fire, that is a haven for drugs, that we had an opportunity as a body to eliminate one of the largest abandoned properties in our city, and we allowed that opportunity to go by the wayside. And so I just think it's just outrageous. It is so ironic that my colleagues are pointing fingers when one of the largest abandoned buildings in this city lies dormant because of their lack of action. So I think it's important that I put that on the record, because you would think that these people would be in favor of rehabilitating abandoned properties. And I live on that block. I drive past that building every single day on my way to work. And every time I see it, I think about the absolute ridiculousness of its current vacancy and the people who are responsible for that. So I have good reason to be upset with my colleagues when I drive past a building every single day. Every day. That's how I get to work. And it literally is a fire hazard, is abandoned. And we had a wonderful opportunity to do something about it, and my colleagues blew it. And you can refer to my op-ed in Insider NJ that outlines how they blew it. Thank you.
Mr. Bilal, I have one question in reference to the 11.5. So the governor had awarded us the 11.5, and it says it's forgivable. And so the 11.5 initially was for the demolition piece. So if we're in partnership with the Greater Trenton, what are they bringing to the table in this? What do they bring to the table? If our 11.5 is to demolish the homes, what is the Greater Trenton bringing to the table? If that came from the governor, what are they bringing to the table? So what is the partnership here?
again, George Soak here from Greater Trenton, who
No.
could elaborate that if you like, but the program required a housing sponsor as a conduit for the funding, because it was a loan. When the funding was set up, again, this is before I came, this is 2017 under Governor Christie, or then Governor Christie. The money was not set up the program to come to the city. It had to go through Greater Trenton. That condition remains. Greater Trenton does not receive any remuneration, any funding from the program. They provide it as in-kind services as part of their mission to foster and help and promote the city. So they don't get any money out of it.
Right, no, that wasn't the question. I said, what were they bringing to the table?
They helped bring management, they helped with drafting the strategic plan that we have here, provided some insight there.
Because I'm just thinking that if it's a partnership and we have the 11.5 that we bring to the table, then why aren't they bringing the revitalization part of the funding? Because the city of Trenton need those houses taken down. You want to revitalize some of the houses that can be saved. So why can't the Greater Trenton bring those funds to the table for the revitalization piece? Why do you feel the need to tap into the 11.5? See, this is one of the reasons why the governor said that he needed some oversight in the money, because when they give you the money for one purpose, they didn't want 1,000 other things to come up that we felt, because there's a million things that we could use the money for. So we needed oversight to make sure that we got those.
Council President, the primary purpose of the money remains the demolition. But what we find is some of these houses you see that are abandoned or blighted, we might not own. And the purpose is to provide some flexibility to use this fund to acquire properties if we need to. And again, if there's 2 or 3 attached row homes, the entire thing is dilapidated, needs to come down, and we need to acquire the one in the middle, we own the ones on the end, to use this fund rather than tapping into city capital funds to acquire it so we can knock them all down and be as efficient as we possibly can. That is the purpose of allowing this flexibility of the funding. But again, the primary purpose is to use it to remove, demolish vacant, abandoned properties.
I didn't say anything about tapping into capital fund.
No, I understand.
I said
that would be the alternative.
I said, how come we can't get the Greater Trenton to find some funds to do the revitalization piece? Why do you feel the need to want to tap into the 11.5 that was designated for the demolishment when you should be trying to garnish a partnership to get the monies for the other piece of your project? If the 11.5 is for the demolition, you want to revitalize, then you get that revitalization piece from another partner. Can we get it from another partner? No one said anything about the capital fund. Can we get someone on board with us to help us get some money from wherever to address this revitalization piece?
Sure.
That's what we need.
I'm sorry, Council President, if I misunderstood. This is certainly not the only funding source that we will look to for redevelopment and revitalization, whether it's CDBG dollars or home dollars or working with redevelopers and designating developers to do it. Absolutely. Other funding sources that become available, the Choice Neighborhood program that we talked about a couple meetings ago, that will be opportunities for applying for new development or implementation dollars. Absolutely. This is not the only source by any means.
Councilman Harrison. Councilman Harrison.
Yeah, my question, like you were saying, like Jarrell had said, Burnsdale, prime example. We squash that. We get a first, we get a second appraisal, right? That building's still empty. It's garbage all the time over there. So when I'm calling out, and I'm out there like George does, we go out there and we clean it up, right? We're out there cleaning it up. We have to call Wally. Now Wally's out there trying to do the best he can. Tonight alone, every time we get people up here, we're attacking them. I don't understand that. We should be working together. We should be looking instead of, I mean, I've heard the mayor's name tonight 40 times. This is ridiculous. How about we all start working together to get things done? It's attack, attack, attack. No solutions. Princetown was a prime example. We could have moved the city forward. But we chose not to look at as moving the city forward. We chose that, oh, let's just vote against this because still don't know why. Let's throw it out there. Because at the end of the day, you've got a vacant property that's still empty, and there's garbage, there's mattresses, there's stuff all the time around it. But then again, majority of people here are not gonna be the ones that go out there, like George and myself, will go out there and do it and clean it. So,
Well, the thing that I wanted to, thank you, Mr. Delisle, but in response to my colleague, I never heard them mention the fact that they let the Cook School deal fall through, and no one is talking about the Cook School deal. They let it fall through, nothing ever happened. You didn't go to your residents and explain the deal to them when they found that you were coming in to build homes in their community that they didn't ask for, they didn't know about. No one could answer to their constituents why they were putting apartments in the Cook School. Then the next thing we know, we just hear through the grapevine that the Cook School project fell through and nobody gave us an explanation as to why they walked away from the deal. They want to keep talking about this fake news with Princetown, but no one is talking about the Cook School and the other deals in the East Ward that fell belly up. So if somebody can explain that to me instead of keep bringing up the Princetown fake news deal, I would appreciate that.
there was a meeting about Cook School, but you weren't there.
No,
So at the end of the day,
is it still existing?
right, but the problem was, there
Is
was
the
a meeting.
project taking
There
place?
was a meeting about the Cook School, and then there was
Is
a
the
meeting.
project still taking
Right, but I'm
place?
saying, you're saying
Is
there
the
was a-
project still taking
You're
place?
saying that there was a
No.
meeting that will never happen, that's a lie. Just like there was a
Your
lie right at
your
Princetown.
residents came in
Right?
here and confronted you right on the dais.
What do you mean they couldn't in front of me?
They
We
came
had a
in,
meeting.
they came into the council meeting and confronted you
At the press
because they
conference
did
as well.
not know what was going on with the Princetown. Go ahead, Mr.
I tell you
Delines.
what fake news was.
Yeah.
The fact that somebody was going to jail. That
Exactly.
was fake news.
We're here.
That's fake
I
news.
tell
Still
you
waiting
what
for the
else
feds
is,
to get me,
the
yeah.
lawsuits that we have wasted, that my colleagues have spent frivolously, has been fake news. I can go on and on with these folks. Blue Waffle is fake news. I can go on and on about what fake news is.
Something, a while ago, we gave you permission, you were going to hire a foreclosure attorney.
Foreclosure attorney.
Yes, foreclosure attorney to foreclose on those properties.
We
Oh, yes.
currently
we
have an
approved
attorney.
that. We approved that.
Yeah, we have that.
And that was, the purpose of that person was to foreclose on those private properties
Yeah.
that are between those two city-owned properties.
Yep.
Because they are vacant,
Yeah.
they are private.
Yeah.
What is going on with that?
That is an ongoing work. We do have a foreclosure attorney, or attorney that works on tax foreclosures. They are targeting, we're trying to focus efforts in areas where we can do redevelopment or looking to do redevelopment. They are doing that work. So absolutely, if we own the property, that's number one. Number two, if we can acquire tax foreclosure from abandonment, right?
Because you're
No one's
talking about
living there,
paying,
who knows?
you're talking about
That's-
buying those properties.
Councilman, this is a tool that we could use. It's not necessarily gonna be our first. We may not even use it. The thing is, it
How
provides
much
flexibility.
is the city getting any tax money from those properties? I know that there are some of them that they have been vacant for 35 years. And they still under a private owner. And you know what those properties are used for? For a tax deduction loss. They put it as a loss when they fill out the taxes. Those LCs that took over the whole Trenton. So foreclosing those properties and use this money to demolish. The ones that are on the way, try to get them
Councilman,
foreclosed.
absolutely, that is our priority, to use this money for demolition.
If you want, I'll give you a tour of the city. I did it to the mayor, he started the first one. And I'll show you all the areas in West Trenton. I know where they all are.
Council President? So I just want to know, Mr. Delisle, since you're now the Director of Housing Inspections, can you get back to the council on the status and the progress of Mayor Gusiora's plan for 1,000 houses in 1,000 days? Has it been abandoned? Is it in progress? Has there any been, if you can get back to us on the status of that program that he ran for office on, and that the city of Trenton believed in him that he was going to deliver. I just want to know what the status is, and how many houses have he has addressed.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Harris, is that resolution gonna be for a roll call? 2067?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and the last resolution is to acknowledge and accept the planning board's adopted TOD, Transit Oriented Development Strategic Plan, as an amendment and supplement to the Trenton 250 Master Plan. If you recall, council was provided an update presentation from Jeff Wilkerson back in October, I believe. So that the plan has been completed, it's been adopted by the planning board, so this is just to acknowledge and accept the plan. From here, we would look to develop redevelopment plans, which would guide redevelopment. So this is a part of an element of the master plan at this point. Okay. And I apologize, I didn't mention this with the first resolution, but I have some handouts here for council members to look at later that just describes what the consolidated plan process is, what it covers. This is for the first one, we're hiring the consultant, just to understand the work that they're going to be doing and how important it is. There's a schedule, there's public input, there's surveys, and all sorts of other things. So
This is with the Greater Trenton?
no, this, and I apologize, this is with the first one, the consultant with Northeast and Bucks Company, Mulligan Lonigan. This is the consultant that's writing the plan.
Thank you all, and I wanted to address a few of the things and amplify what Director Delisle mentioned. So, first of all, Council President, the question you asked earlier about what we bring to the table. We bring years and years of experience in real estate development, acquisition, finance. Most recently, I was the developer of Campbell's Soup in Camden, New Jersey, Subaru's North American headquarters, which is a $118 million project, which brought over 500 jobs in the city of Camden. And most recently here, we submitted for a $3 million grant to JP Morgan Advancing Cities Challenge. It was really the premise behind it was moving Trenton forward by Trentonians for Trentonians, including workforce training elements. That was a key piece of that. Making sure we maintained affordability, maintained equity in the city, and had it spread throughout the entirety of the city, not just concentrated in certain areas, by leveraging the $11.5 million program that we've been speaking about. The other piece of this program, though, what Director Delisle had mentioned, was really how do we leverage the resources that are there? What's the best way to get the highest economy scale, have the highest impact, and still maintain affordability? Because as Director Delisle alluded to, the city has to own the properties, first of all. So if the city owns, in 5 row homes, for example, if the city owns 2 and 4, all of a sudden you have to go and do hand demolition of those properties, stabilize sidewalls, and I suggest to you that's not the most economical way to approach this. Rather, if you can either acquire or stabilize, which this more robust program allows for now, is where you achieve the highest economies of scale. So either make a decision to demolish selectively, or selectively renovate and or acquire to allow 5 homes now to be available rather than doing 2 and 4 demolition at 5 row home structure. So a lot of this really is how best to strategically use these dollars to have the highest impact. And so that's what we're working on. And the other piece of this thing, we've incurred somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 of cost. We don't get a nickel reimbursement for these costs. So we do it as part of our mission to move the city forward. So if anyone would like to ask about, how we move forward, we rely on our board members for that support to enable us to do what we do here in the city. Some of the things, Councilman Santiago, you asked what we do. Last month, we brought over 200 people into the city for an event to honor Karen Franzine's legacy. We distributed free tickets to people in the city, invited each and every one of the city council people to that event. Not everyone came, but you were all invited. And we also have conducted over 150 tours of the city, trying to build the demand for the city. Because look, you can build buildings all day long, but if you don't have the supply and the demand imbalance, you create these terrible inefficiencies. And so we're working on the demand side to try to move the city forward and still maintain the equity throughout the city, the affordability and the diversity throughout the city.
But
Yes.
besides the $3 million, that was brought up by Councilwoman Bond. She was the one that sent you the information on that.
JP Morgan Advancing Cities.
JP Morgan, that
Sure,
was,
sure.
it was in Greater Trenton, it didn't come from Greater Trenton,
look,
it came from Councilwoman Bond. She referred it to the mayor,
Yes,
and the
all due
mayor referred it
respect,
to you.
all due respect, we wrote the entirety of that submission. So it's one
Yeah,
that,
yeah, but-
so you can argue that we did nothing.
No, I'm not saying that you did
okay.
nothing.
Well, I want to make sure we had our facts straight.
You have, I know when you started, I remember, I saw the names, I said, oh, that's
Yes.
great for Trenton.
Yes.
But I must say, well, we weren't permitted to do it under the criteria of the program. You had to do it because
Right.
of what Ben DeLisle talked about. When Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 100 companies contribute programs or start programs, Michael Bloomberg has done it, J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon, CEO. When they take on these initiatives with cities to build out, they did it in Detroit, they want to partner with a conduit like nonprofit organization because, unfortunately, no one trusts, leaders in cities and politicians to do right by, massive funding. So they trust organizations that nonprofit. They get the appropriate, so they had to do the submission of the application, et cetera. It was just the rules of the engagement.
A great point of clarification.
Yeah.
And I also say we're proud that we were through the initial cut. They had about 240 submissions initially. We made it down to the initial, the first cut of 80 across the entire country. And so we didn't make it to the finals, but they only selected, I believe, 4 cities at the end of the day. But we did make it through the initial cut. We had a very long discussion with them. They said the reason Trenton did not make the final cut, they said some of the other cities that were awarded had programs already in place that were further along that they can point to data sets to support what they're proposing. For us, this was a new program for the city. And so when they said we're allocating $3 million to 4 cities across the country, they wanted better data to support what they were proposing rather than a new program. So again, they also admitted they were shocked. Not surprising to us, but they were shocked internally that they had about 240 submissions in total. Because look, the dollars are so competitive. There's so much need across the entirety of the country. And there's so many cities such as Trenton that need those dollars. So I suggest to you one of our big missions is looking for sources of funding. Because look, we're a small organization, but what we try to do is leverage our resources and our relationships to make sure that we're out there to take advantage of opportunities that persist and will be present at times. But again, to think that as a small organization, we could start to fund renovations that, $11 million program, it's more about leveraging and making sure that we strategically use those dollars to have the best impact across the city.
President Brown. Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you all for your work with Greater Trenton in terms of your work to enhance our city. We're going to need a lot of different partners to pull our city up from the morass that it's been in for the last 50 years. And so I'm very excited about the work that you all are doing. I look forward to future successes and anything that I can do to support your work, please let me know.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Sure. George Sowa, it's SOWA, and I'm CEO of Greater Trenton, a native Trentonian. Now but again, the importance of getting this right, and people look to New Brunswick to our north, even Camden now to our south. Cooper's Ferry has been in existence for 30 years or something in Camden. They finally have been able to move the city forward in a very consequential way. DevCo up in New Brunswick has been at this for 30 years as well. And now you can see what's happening in New Brunswick. But the time to plan for equity is now. Because, we have so much opportunity here and so many assets that are underutilized. And so now is the time to make sure that we plan strategically and collectively to move the city forward in a way that makes sense. And also maintain equity, because once things start to move, and I assure you things will start to move one day, God willing, and once that happens, we need to have equity, maintain diversity. It makes the city such a vibrant place that it is. So that's where we need to work together to make things happen, working with Director DeLisle, all of you, to move the city forward, because frankly, it's overdue. and it's time to move things forward.
Good evening, Council President. This is Wally Unitary, Public Works Director. I have before you 3 resolutions, and the first one is the 20-70 resolution accepting a bid and awarding a contract to Lama Electric Inc., New Jersey, for the purchase and installation of 1 General Industrial Gaseous natural gas engine driven generator for or equivalent in the amount not to exceed 139,500. This is for engine 9. We've been asking for this money for long through FEMA. They gave us the money, and we have a time constraint, and we finally get it done with the help of the state, that help us out to get it done. So this is something that they need for the firehouse engine 9 on West State Street, because they use it as a disaster zone, for in case we have any FEMA recognized things that is going on, like we have natural disaster. So this is a place that everybody would be able to congregate. And they want us to make sure we have something that just if there's a light out or anything like that, we have humongous generator that can take care of that for us. That's what that is right there. The second one is 20-71, is the resolution accepting a bid awarding a contract to Seed Post Construction, East Brunswick, for reconstruction of West Warren Street and West State. This is the, on West State and Warren Street, we have a lot of bricks coming out there, and it's so loose over the years, and it's becoming a safety issue that we're working on right now. So we have that, and it's also something we want to put back as historical, the way it is right now, because it's kind of eyesore to that location. So that's something we're working on right now.
I have a question. Is it going to include paving Broad Street or just that corner?
That is just,
I drive through there almost
yes,
every
that
day.
is just for that.
corner.
Because of the way it is, we have to.
246,000, so
And the other one, the last one I have is the 20-72 resolution authorizing the filing of an application for 2019 recycling, tonnage grant with the NJDOP. I'm sorry, New Jersey Department of Protection. This is application we file every year. If we don't file this application, we will not be able to get some of the grants that DOP gives for recycling all over the city. So that's what that is.
One other question. You were here when we still had the center on Brunswick Avenue, recycling center. What's the status with that? I know it's full of equipment. It was brand new equipment when the mayor decided to privatize it. What happened with it? And Mayor Gusciora, and I'm going to mention Mayor Gusciora because in front of us, he told us that I asked him that question. He said that he was going to look into it to see if we could put that equipment to work. But that was over a year and a half ago.
And it sure did. It did look into it. We have that equipment there. They are not as new. They are old. There's a lot of new equipment that is modernized. But for us to do anything with that building, we have to get a new building entirely. Because recycling, that building is just standing there. It has a lot of leaks. It has a lot of things that need to be done. We have to equip it with new equipment, which Mayor Reed has mentioned to me many times, which I wrote something for him in reference to that, what is needed, but it's going to cost a lot. And then we have to hire people to be able, and also, we used to make money in recycling, but now there's no money like it used to be. So it's not viable for the city to go into that anymore.
Councilwoman Harrison?
Well, you're saying, equipment-wise, how's your apartment running with your equipment-wise? Do you need upgrade, or how, overall is your apartment?
We definitely need equipment because we're paying fines to DEP especially, who are giving us money with one hand and taking it from the other. We have a lot of vehicles that is out there smoking, leaking, we have to replace them. We're having big issue. And part of the reason why we end up spending so much money for overtime is because of our vehicles. They broke down, and we have to pack it, and then when the guys go, they have to come back to do those routes, especially in solid waste, especially, we have that problem there.
So that is one of the reasons why, Councilman, Michelle and Councilman Blakely, point should be reviewed in reference to the vehicles that all of the staff is taking home, people driving all of the cars, and if we start managing things right and properly, then you can reduce the overhead here and increase your vehicles, or some of the departments can get some of the things that they want. But you need to be able to see where the waste is, and it needs to be, they need to cut back on the waste, you know. So that's why it's important to look at the larger picture as far as the vehicles are concerned. And the fact that your people, the police officers, are complaining. They said that they can't go out, they have to cut back on their numbers based on the cars. So that's why it's important to look at the larger picture with the vehicles and see where you could cut the wasteful spending, and in that way you could produce a savings and use it in another area.
Council President, in the public works, actually we are, a lot of job we do is 24 hours. I get called for everything that goes on in the city. When the building from then collapse, I get called. I have to provide barricades. I have to block the city off. So most of the time, I have to leave my house to come out there, even though I might not have to be the one doing the job. But I come there with the guys, and some of my guys that have vehicles go home. They are people who are on 24-hour call. Saturday, Sunday, they come to work. So that's why I'm trying to figure out, when you said we are using vehicles, I understand that. But some of the guys that we have, they have reasons to have those vehicles, and they don't go out with those vehicles other than coming for the city to do whatever they have to do.
President Grant, I just want to say, for me, I'm not necessarily concerned about the reasonable use of vehicles by city employees. I'm sure that there are plenty of people in the police department, there are plenty of people in public works, plenty of people in inspections that have a legitimate use for vehicles. What I'm concerned about is stopping abuse of vehicle use, and we don't currently have any protections in place as per the business administrator to stop possible misuses of vehicles. And so I just want to make that clear. I understand, that your folks are using them properly, but I think that there are some people, I'm not going to say any names, because that wouldn't be appropriate, but there's some people who I know for a fact, like, they could use their own car, get reimbursed for the mileage. It's not like we live, we're representing Wyoming, or we're representing Nevada. We have a 7.5 square mile city. Like, it takes 10 minutes to get from one side to the city to the other side. And I just feel that there's some people who feel that the city of Trenton should pay for their transportation 24 hours a day, in addition to a salary and benefits. And I think that's just unfortunate. That's what I'm going to say.
Holly, you're talking about like leaf machines, right? You're talking about majority of heavy equipment, like the leaf machine that broke down, and other equipment that you need that we have to be getting to, so like you said, cut down on overtime. So it's not, we're not just talking personal vehicles, we're talking heavy duty vehicles.
That's correct, yes.
I just wanted to say something. I appreciate all the departments in the city. And I have tremendous respect for all the directors who work every day with a lack of resources. And I don't, I'm just really disappointed that, again, Mayor Gasiora really has not advocated and negotiated with the state, the governor, to get resources to build out our these departments, to get the right equipment, to get the level of resources, to provide the service level that our residents deserve. That we pay, I'm sure, by the end of this budget season, DCA And Mayor Reed Gussior is gonna hike the taxes of the residents and taxpayers of this city to some ridiculous level that is not commensurate with the services that our departments are able to provide, because he hasn't gotten the appropriate level of resources or the money. So again, I hold Reed Gussior accountable, and I would want our Public Works Department to have all the state-of-the-art equipment that it needs, get rid of all those old trucks, hire more resources, want, boots on the ground to help, clean up our streets. And it's not happening because our executive is not negotiating with the governor to get the appropriate level of revenue to resource our departments. And that's all I got to say about that.
President Brown. I think that anybody that has a problem with the job that Mayor Gussior is doing, they should run to replace him in 2022. So the fact of the matter is, we're elected for this 4-year term to do what we can and not point fingers as per what Councilman Harrison said. So, some of us aspire to be mayor, and I'm sure it will come out in the next few months, the next few years, that they're interested in running, and we'll see how they'll do. But remember, when you point one finger, 4 are going back to you, and I just think it's clear that some of the rhetoric of my colleagues are maybe because, I don't want to say, I'm not definitively sure, but maybe because they're interested in taking on the seat, and I encourage them to do so.
So, thank you, Mr. Harris, for resolution 20-73, 20-74, 20-75, 20-76, 20-77, and 20-78. I would like to table all of these. I believe that the water department should not spend not one red cent moving forward until we get a handle on that water department. If it's not chemical related or some type of water treatment for the water department, we do not need to be moving forward. We know nothing about it. We've asked, we got a bunch of memos yesterday. We need to go through them. I'll move to table 20-73, 20-74, up into 20-78.
President Bryant.
I move to table it. That's a motion on the floor, Mr. Harris.
I second it.
Second it.
Motion by Ms. McBride, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. Discussion?
Yes, President Bryant. I'm looking here at 20-76 for belt filter press preventative maintenance. Can you please tell me, Mr. Smith, or Director Smith, if that is related to water quality? It's 20-76.
Well, it's related to sustaining our operations at the plant, yes. So if we lose the belt filter press, we lose our ability to take care of solids, and it'll compromise the treatment process.
Okay, thank you.
I have a
So
question.
I'm not done. I'm not finished. I'm not finished. I'm still going. It says here 20-77. Can you tell me what the Environmental Systems Research Institute is and what they are doing to maintain clean drinking water?
This is more of an operational need as opposed to a water quality need.
Okay.
Our lead service program operates off GIS software, which is expired. It also helps us operate a hydrant inspection program, a valve inspection program, assists with markouts. It's basically the mapping that our department relies upon to assess breaks and other system failures. So this is the software to extend the contract.
So, for example, if the Princeton project property were to catch fire, we would need this system to use the hydrants to ensure.
We just initiated a lead service program, okay? We rely upon it to track the work that's done
Okay.
That this allows us to continue tracking that
Gotcha.
program. We are under order by the state to do a valve assessment program by the end of this year. This program will allow us to facilitate the valve assessment program. We're by the Accountability Act, the Water Accountability Act, we have a hydrant inspection program, which is an annual program. Again, this software is a powerful tool. It's used by all utilities that I'm aware of to assist with their operations. And our software is expired. This will help move that, obtain that software for the
And regarding 2078, the repair of water distribution system leaks and infrastructure, can you tell me about how that is related to water quality?
So currently, we have a number of crews that are dispatched on a regular basis during work hours and off hours to assess breaks. Breaks happen, they're not planned, they occur at 2 o'clock in the morning, multiple times they can occur on the same day at 2 in the morning. Our crews are only capable of handling so much, so we rely upon contractors to assist us with main breaks. In addition, this contract also provides us with mechanisms to do water main extensions, to supply equalized pressure in our system, and also to, again, I go back to the valve assessment program. We have 1,000 valves in our system that are inaccessible, okay? And we are under order to access those valves. A lot of them are buried. They're under the road somewhere. We gotta locate them, we gotta bring them to grade, we gotta exercise them, and we have to repair them if they're broken. A lot of these valves probably haven't been exercised in 20-some odd years. So this contract allows us to rely on a contractor to start to assess some of those valves. We intend on doing some of it in-house. As a matter of fact, Sean is right now our unit manager for construction and maintenance. So
How timely are
so
these?
this by the way, right now the way we're procuring emergency brakes is on an emergency by emergency basis. So they do the work, and then we declare an emergency, and then we pay them for every single hour they spend on the job. We compared this contract, the unit prices we got from this contract, versus the last 20 main breaks that we had. This contract saves us 20 to 25%. So where we were spending $320,000, we're now spending $90,000 plus. So there's a lot of cost benefits to doing this work.
Yeah, I just want to say it's completely irresponsible not to pass these ordinances, particularly the ones that I identified that are central to water quality and that save us money in the water department. And so I just hope we vote against tabling this, and that we vote on this, at least have the first reading on Thursday. Thank you.
Well, welcome, Acting Director
Thank you.
David Smith.
I appreciate it.
And you have a Herculean job on your hands, but I want you to know that you will not find a greater champion of Trenton Waterworks than Councilwoman Robin Vaughn. Okay. I am a partner. I'm a soldier for this publicly run water utility. I know you're new, and you may not know all the history, but I think you should take some time to get acquainted with the history. Okay, this city fought long and hard for many, many years, decades. We fought off special interests and everybody else and their mother who tried to come into the city and try to privatize. Of course, the sell thing is off the table because these citizens took the referendum. We took it to the wall to make sure this utility stayed public and publicly operated and publicly owned for the benefits of this city. Right?
Yes.
So we just want you to know, and we want you to partner with us with that strategy and that mission.
I am part of the mission.
So having said that, I think what Council President has proposed here tonight, that if you want these all these things to go through, and we will gladly, unanimously vote them in and give you all these resources that you need. But you got to deliver for us and give us some insight as to what's going on in that water department. You know all our requests, so the faster you turn it around, if you can get those to us within 24 hours, we can get this stuff all approved. But so it's not just the council doing our part. You have to do yours.
Yeah.
So and I'm counting on you to do that.
We're going to follow through and address your questions.
So we're just holding this off for a couple more days, because I know you can turn it around in a couple of days, because we've been asking for this stuff for quite some time, so I would think that this work has been in progress already. And you're just, maybe there's probably been a couple of iterations, a couple of drafts, because you came to council a couple weeks ago when council president asked you about these, the financial analysis around the rate increase and asset management planning and et cetera, that you had a full spreadsheet of all the financials, you know, reconciling all the debt, the bonds that we have approved, issued, and notes that have been drawn down, and how those funds were appropriated. So you have all those. You said it's all done, and you can share it with us. So we should expect you to turn this around very quickly, and then I will very happy to support and pass all of these. Okay, and that's all I have to say.
Councilman
So I
Rodriguez.
have two questions on that. 2074, this came in front of us before I was poor. It's going to be a Ford F-250, I believe.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, it looks like very good. Automatic, 6-speed automatic, with GPS. Who's going to drive that? That's
our
like a luxury.
maintenance crew at the plant. Okay, they're driving a 2008 truck right now that's in very poor condition. This is the crew that's dispatched when there's a plant, there's an issue at our central pumping station, or a clock and booster station, or a storage tank.
But
Right?
this is not this vehicle is a luxury vehicle. I know what they are. For F-250, oh man, this is a junk. I know they have to be four-wheel drive because they get stuck everywhere. But this is a luxury vehicle. This is to ride around the city.
I don't think we're
You
furnishing
want
you with high-level
GPS?
seats. You
With
know.
GPS? In Trenton, you need GPS?
We to the point where we track our vehicles, okay? We know where our guys are going. And when they leave the site, they come back and they park their vehicles in the parking spots that are assigned to them.
Okay.
So we have our finger on the pulse there. I just want to make sure. And understand this too, our factory is, you know, Fords are easy to work on, okay? They're reliable, okay? So you buy what you pay for, okay? And you know, you might want to spend more money in maintenance. We bought a Chase backhoe, right? And now we've sent it out for $12,000 worth of repair. It's our newest backhoe, and guess what? It isn't working well. Why? Because we tried to save a few bucks on something that we probably shouldn't have. So what's the next one we're purchasing? We're going to purchase a Caterpillar, a more reliable vehicle. And we would learn from our mistakes and we move on, right? So, I respectfully disagree. I feel like this is a vehicle that is, widely used and proven in the industry, and for us as a reliable, and we need it to be reliable because this vehicle is dispatched in the middle of the night. You know, we can't have it breaking down on the way to fixing a valve that's malfunctioning. So,
President Drive,
I haven't finished.
maybe you want to go.
20-76. Preventive maintenance services, but it's going to be done by a company from Houston, Texas. How can they do that? Through the phone, through the internet? Or
that's a good question. I mean, they have.
And it's only
that's where it's headquartered.
$88,000. It's not.
That's where it's headquartered. It's headquartered in Houston, but they have offices throughout the state. And so it's a specialized piece of equipment. Okay, you can't just go to Joe.
So who's going to do this preventive maintenance? Where?
They are the
Somebody
company. This
in
is
this area?
a specialized service for a major piece of equipment.
Yeah, but I mean, in this area, where are they located? In New Jersey.
I can find out. I don't know offhand.
I looked it up and I didn't see that.
Yeah, I mean, the contractor has to be a factory service center, with 5+ years experience with quarterly inspections. So it's.
I understand that.
They're limited
Well,
outfits who can actually do it, but I can find out.
So,
No, I'm there.
okay, so this is everything tied up into a nice little package. When the council asked for the $93 million bonds that was filed and hadn't been, and you came in front of us, you said, oh, we have that, we can get it tomorrow. That was 2 weeks ago. When we asked someone from the administration, Ms. Christian Epstein. She said there's no money in the reserve. It's not funny to me. She said there's no money in the reserve, and she said there's the revenue that we get in, it comes into our right hand and we spend it out in our left hand. Then we asked for a forensic audit. Mr. Pico stood in front of us and said, I agree 100% with the forensic audit, but the administration never moved forward. We've been asking for the status of the water department. What is the balance of the reserve? What is the actual revenue that we have on hand? How much is the water filtration plant worth? Where is those bonds that has been approved but hasn't been drawn down to use? What projects are attached to them? What projects aren't? So you come to us and you say, hey, I have all of this, I'll give it to you tomorrow. That tomorrow ended up to today and we still don't have it. What I'm saying to this administration is this. We serve as the board of directors to that water department. We should know what is over there in that water department. We should know what the reserve is. Why do we have to ask for almost 9 months to a year, what is the reserves, to get no answer? And then they just keep playing the shell game with us. First they put Christian up. She doesn't give us the right answer. They move Christian out. Mr. Cruz comes in. Oh, I don't know why she told you that, but it's not true. Then Mr. Cruz move out. They put Mr. Pico there. Mr. Pico come in. Oh yes, I agree with you. We're going to give you the forensic audit. We're going to do this. We got the asset management plan coming. We have the rateable analysis coming. All this good stuff. Here it is today. You walk in here with 20 people to give a presentation, but you give us no information. You give us no analysis. Then the gentleman says the analysis is not even complete. The analysis is not even complete. So where were you going to get that information from? So I guess the stack of memos that you sent to us, we were supposed to look at all this paper within 24 hours and come back and say, hey, this is not here, that's not here. I wouldn't even pick it up because you gave it to me on a Monday. I'm coming to conference on a Tuesday. Not having anything to do with the fact that we have not gotten an answer about that money on those bonds. But you said you had it. Then they move Mr. Pico out and they bring you here. So it's like a shell game going on, but the council's been asking the same questions from 2018 until 2020. The same questions. What is the water department reserves? How much money is in our actual capital budget over there at the water department? They said they didn't have enough to even they were spending the reserves down. The $9 million that they said they were spending now on a daily basis. And now, all of this right here says the capital funding from the water department. We don't know what's in the water department. Somebody need to get that information to us very quick, or nothing will go through here unless it is a chemical or a water treatment, because we need to know what is over there. You're not going to come in here and raise the rates on our customers and the Trentonians to infuse money over there in that water department without us knowing what is there now. What is there? Nobody knows.
Over $6 million in reserves right now. All right, over $6 million in reserves. I'm going to get some
paperwork. Can we get some paperwork?
I don't want to
sir?
give it to you.
You said that the last time you were in front
but
of us.
what I was promising to is the debt cancellations. That I had in order. But there was a change in the strategy to make it more simplified, which caused the delay. Just give me a second, please.
No, give me a second
please,
and get the paperwork.
I will get
That's
you
what
the
we
paperwork.
want.
Well, there's a budget hearing scheduled for February, a budget hearing, which talks about the status of 2020's budget, which is planned for in mid-February. I think it's the 12th, is it not? So that's going to provide you with a clear depiction of where we are at in terms of operating budget for fiscal year 2020.
Can we get the analysis that was done, the rate analysis?
Yes.
We wanna put on the docket a rate increase. We don't even know what the analysis showed. We don't need it. And then the asset management plan. Back a year ago, DEP said that they had submitted an analysis plan that was seriously flawed. They asked them to take it back and produce another asset management plan. That's a year ago. We were in DCA the 5th of February, a year ago. So now it takes a year to correct your flaws. We still don't have that paperwork. So what I'm saying to you is we don't want to move anything forward out of the water department that is not aligned with the treatment of the water. We want you to produce that paperwork that we need in order to move forward. And if some of my colleagues feel like they don't need that information, then it's okay. But I want to tell you that I need that information in order for us to move forward. And Mr. Harris, there's a motion on the floor, and I would like to put it to a vote.
I just want to say one thing.
The question has been called. Councilman Roll, Mr. Blakely?
No.
Mr. Harrison?
No.
Mr. Michelle?
No.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
And Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
And it's a tie vote, so what happens in this tie?
It
It
fails.
fails.
Table fails. There you go.
Motion fails.
I just want to say one thing. Can I say one thing? Mr. Smith, I know that you are a water industry professional. And you know that a water utility, a public water utility, is if a municipality is blessed to have a public water utility like Trenton, we want to see at some juncture the citizens of this city, the residents and the taxpayers, want to realize, yes, we want to deliver to our customers, and Trentonians, we're a customer too, clean, safe, high quality water. That's job one, priority one, and build out an infrastructure that can facilitate that objective. But secondly, and up there running a close first, is that we want to realize the benefits of that water utility to help Trenton's local economy. And as a water industry professional, that is one of the key purposes of having such an asset. And unfortunately, for whatever the reason, I can't go back in time. The city of Trenton has not realized any of the benefits that our largest revenue generating asset supposed to deliver for us. Like every other town and municipality that has a water utility, Trenton is no different than any other 9 municipalities that have a publicly run and owned water utility. They use their water assets after they have properly reinvest their funds into their infrastructure and making sure it's compliant with our regulators and delivering clean, high quality water. And then what's ever left, because of smart management, smart financial policies, that those revenues are used for job creation in the community, for coverage for our budget, to help you buy those trucks, to help Mr. Onitarian to get his equipment. The revenues from that water utility, the surplus, should facilitate giving these residents of the city tax relief. They deserve that. They're the owners of the utility. But you, as the director, you have to facilitate that. You have to deliver on those objectives. Yes, I see a lot of your analysis. It speaks to, capital projects, and we understand those have to be done. But the big component that's left, you don't put forth a business case as to why, as Council President stated, why justifying the rate increase. The customer base is going to want to know, the citizens, the residents and taxpayers and ratepayers of this city is going to want to know. It ain't just good enough to say, oh, we're going to have a rate increase because we didn't have one for the last 13 years. That's not good enough. We want to know the business case as to why we're raising the rates, why it makes good sense to do so, what the benefits are for the customer base, what's the benefits for the city of Trenton, and most importantly, we're going to use our water utility and that surplus money to help with the shortfalls of this budget, to help build out the other departments and support the other departments across the city, and most importantly, give the taxpayers of the city some relief. And we need you to help us do that. So we're counting on you, and that's all I have to say about that.
The presentation covers a
All of
large
that.
portion of what
Okay.
you mentioned.
All right,
I
thank
worked all
you.
weekend trying to get it
All right,
done.
I'm
so-
counting on you, Mr.
Yeah,
Smith.
you know.
That's all I have to say.
Let me explain it to you this way. We've been tabling things, right? We pull things off the docket, right? We've talked about raising the water rates in here. Now we're talking about we're not raising water rates in here. We're talking about people who were part of stopping the outline pipes to American Water, which they weren't a part of. So it's just like, you know, it's all Reed's fault. Just remember that. Because these are things that need to be done. We could have voted on 3 of them. But no, we want to table everything. But that's the mayor's fault. See, that's what I'm saying. Don't blame the mayor when we could have moved 3 of them ahead, or, you know, and then the other ones we could have tabled. We could have tabled the other ones. But the problem is you come in with this motto of, let me slam my hand down, let's block everything. Let's stop everything. And that's not the right way to go. At the end of the day, it's a give and take. And the problem is a lot of people in here don't know when to stop blaming somebody else and start maybe helping, let's work together. Because I don't never want to blame you. I want to be a help to you. Exactly. Thank you.
So it was requested that these 6 resolutions be roll call, correct?
Yeah.
These are resolutions.
Resolutions.
These are resolutions.
Exactly. That's what it should be.
So, unless you need more from Mr. Smith, we're going with the ordinances. Okay, we're done. Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
2073, 2078 on roll call.
2073 through 20-78 will be roll call.
Okay.
That's good. And then finally, the ordinance is being presented for first reading and introduction. Ordinance number 20-10, which is a capital ordinance providing for the reconstruction and rehabilitation of Stuyvesant Avenue, buying in the city of Trenton, county of Mercer, state of New Jersey, appropriating $1,187,452 to pay the cost thereof, which amount will be funded by Municipal Aid and Urban Aid New Jersey Transportation Trust Fund grant received or expected to be received by the city from the state of New Jersey Department of Transportation.
I have a question. Why you see that in the form of an ordinance and not a resolution?
Pardon me?
Why you see an ordinance and not a resolution?
Because this is a capital expenditure. If you're spending capital funds, which can only be spent to ordinance. Ordinance number 20-11, which is an ordinance continuing certain positions, fixing salary ranges, therefore, and setting forth certain regulations for the implementation of these ranges for AFCME local 2281. There should not be a dollar sign there. For the water treatment plant superintendent, $111,591 to $152,899. Ordinance number 20-14 is an ordinance of the city of Trenton, county of Mercer, state of New Jersey, to change the election date of the nonpartisan municipal election from the second Tuesday of May to the date of the November general election commencing in the year 2022.
President Brock, I'd like to make a few statements about this ordinance. I'm against it. I think it's a bad idea for a number of reasons that I will outline. Number one, I am concerned with the fact that this ordinance is coupled with an ordinance that is not listed here, but will be listed, that will remove the runoff election from our municipal election cycle. This is a piece of blatant political, political chicanery. Folks, I believe, are planning to run for mayor, and they know that they cannot appeal the majority of the electorate. And so therefore, they want to change the rules of the game to ensure that they have a pathway to victory. That's one reason why I'm opposed to this. Another reason why I'm opposed to it, because I believe that the November ballot has historically had a number of differing elections. You may be contending with governor's race, state assembly race, and that it would be very, very difficult for candidates to present a message that can go through the tumult that exists in a November election. When you look at why spring elections were instituted, they were instituted to provide a time that allowed for the voters to analyze candidates without the pressure of a November election, because there's so many different positions on the ballot. When you have your May election, you are allowed, there's an opportunity for people to consider candidates in a quieter time, which I think is really important as we consider the direction of our city. There are other rationales. I think that the majority, the eliminating the runoff is probably the most dangerous of my colleagues' presented ordinances, because it would allow a narrow slice of the voting public to elect someone. So, for example, we could literally see a mayoral candidate emerge with 5% of the vote if they have the highest voting of the people who actually voted. Do we really want to have a mayor who is governing all of us that can't even get a majority of the vote in an election? That's why you have the runoff, because what's going to happen is you have elections with the folks who vote. That's how you go to election. You go election with the people who vote. And so the issue is eliminating a runoff would allow someone with even less votes than the current incumbent. As I mentioned previously, this group of ordinances are blatantly political. I want to state on the record, I have no interest whatsoever in running for mayor. I'll be running for city council at large. I'm very happy to do so, but I think that the author of this ordinance is doing this for very dangerous, selfish reasons, and I think that we need to just put a stop to this. We need to not, and then my final point of why I'm really concerned about this is that it will give power to, it will politicize in terms of make it more partisan. One benefit of the city of Trenton is that it is non-partisan. When you have an election in November, you're going to see political parties, and I don't care if they're Democratic or Republican, they're going to have a lot more of a say in municipal government, because they'll be coordinating efforts, anointing certain candidates, anointing certain people to run for office. Even though the elections won't be partisan, they will have a way more partisan bent. One thing I like about the city of Trenton is that anybody can get elected if you present a compelling argument to the voters. We don't have to go to political bosses like you have to in other cities. When you look at Atlantic City, when you look at Camden, you look at all these other cities that have November elections, it is way more partisan. And I'll be honest, nobody on this council is beloved by the local political parties, right? Like, none of us would be appointed by the local political parties. But the reason why we were elected is because we presented our claims to the public, and they supported us independent of a political party. That would not happen if it was held in November. They would have a lot more control that I think that they shouldn't. And so finally, we have to remember why spring elections happened. It was a byproduct of the progressive era where they were trying to departisanize municipal elections. And I think that changing it to November would make it more partisan. And I would also note that more people voted in our May election than who voted in this last November election. So this idea, who voted in the city of Trenton. So I'm getting, I looked at the information, it was very, very close. And I would say that the idea that this is going to increase the voting population is something that may be the case. I've asked for some information from the clerk's office, from the county clerk's office that I'm waiting for. And so I hope all of my colleagues vote no. I would be generally in support of this. However, I'm concerned about the lack of a runoff. And I just want to note on the record, it doesn't matter to me personally if we have a runoff. I received more than 50% plus one in the last election. I received a majority of the votes. Me and Council President McBride received more than 50% plus one. You can check the records, 2,745 votes. And so it's not something that is going to help me personally. Yeah, I can tell you, you can divide the number of ballots cast by 6 plus 1, I believe, is the equation. You'll get the number that states what 50% plus 1 is in the at-large candidate. You'll see that I received more than that. But I'm just saying, this has nothing to do with me in terms of my own political career, because I'm sure I'll get reelected with no problem. But I'm concerned about my other colleagues who have aspirations of being mayor, who know that they can't win, and so that they want to be able to win based on their little sliver, and go from there. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Council President? So is the ordinance to move the runoff on, I mean, the runoff on here?
No, it's just to change the election.
Yeah, it's just to change the election. I just find it hilarious that these operatives, these political operatives, Mayor Reed Gussiora is going around the city of Trenton and throughout City Hall professing and has insight as to the career aspirations or political aspirations of Councilwoman Robin Vaughn. Okay? No one, I have not told anyone in this city that I was running for mayor. And here we are, 2.5 years out of the election, and these people are talking about Robin Vaughn. It's all about Robin Vaughn. So I don't know what it is about Robin Vaughn that Mayor Gussiora fears. He is the mayor. He has the job. He won the election in 2018, but he's too busy not doing his job. All this stuff that we're talking about here is tons of work that this mayor has to do, but he's too busy distracting this city and this council, consumed with what Robin Vaughn is going to do in 2022. 2.5 years. If I were the mayor, I would work hard to not worry about what a councilwoman is doing. One councilwoman is doing, I would just worry about doing my job that I was elected to do. But he can't do that because he's obsessed with me. And now he got his minions running around, oh, she's running for mayor, and we got to stop her. And she wants to change the November election, the May election to November. Well, every other municipality has done the same because it saves costs. If Mayor Gussiora cares about the city of Trenton, and I'm sure our city clerk can tell you, because he has expertise in this field, that consolidation of elections, particularly, we are a fiscally distressed city. We have no money. This is what we're talking about now, and we want to spend it on a May election where most of the people don't even want to come out in May because they got graduation, they got vacations, they got et cetera, tons of things are going on that they don't want to come out in May. So I'm just telling you that all the professionals in this field agrees that municipalities should consolidate their elections to November, particularly in inner cities where there's predominantly people of color, where there's issues of voter suppression. Everybody knows that May is the worst time to have these type of elections in inner cities. We are an inner city, and we are a city of predominantly people of color, where the powers that be, special interests, always deploy mechanisms like runoffs to suppress the vote and to stack candidates to oppose real candidates who want to do something for the people, like myself. And don't be mistaken. You can go to the Mercer County website and look at the 2018 election, and you'll see the reason why they're afraid, because everybody knows somebody who knows anything about elections, that Robin Vaughn was the highest vote getter in the city of Trenton. I beat 4 candidates, 3-1. Okay, so it is true. So so if you go, nobody got more votes than Robin Vaughn in the West Ward. The biggest. No, you did not. No, you did not. You did not. And I'm going to tell you why. 3-1. I got the most votes in the West Ward. In the West Ward.
So
if people don't know, no, but I'm just going to finish my sentence. You let him finish. You let him finish. Talk about. Well, we are. I'm going to get back to ordinance.
Debate your numbers.
You, Kathy, Press Cap. I'm just going to be respectful. So I'm just letting you know that the West Ward, you can't win the election without the West Ward, and I won it 3-1, and I was the highest vote getter. So there you go. So, but all I want to say about this ordinance, it's a good ordinance, and I'm getting great feedback amongst our constituents in my ward and beyond. And I just asked, I put it out here even before it hit the media and it hit the press. I mean the community. That I welcome all my council. This is not an ordinance that is going to give me an advantage. It's going to boost my stock. It's an ordinance that's going to help this city and get more people civically engaged. So if you're not for that, if Mayor Gucciora is not for that, which he's not, he has proven himself not to be for a lot of things. If he's not for getting this city fiscally healthy, and one of the ways to do it is consolidating an election, then shame on Mayor Gucciora and stop making it about me. Okay? Win your election. If he's doing the job of the city, he can win. I'm not going to prevent him from doing that. So all I'm telling you, I'm just working on being the best West Ward council person that I can be. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to continue to put up good legislation that's going to help this city. So that's all I got to say. And moving our elections is going to do that. And I guarantee you, if it goes to ballot, I think, excuse me, Mr. Kaloji, this one is going to ballot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, and it doesn't end with us here. We have to put this to the people. If the people want their election moved to November, then let the people decide that. Period.
Yeah, exactly. Like Jarrell had said, if one of my colleagues is not running for mayor, that's 45 times you said the mayor's name. 45 times, and you're not running for mayor. I've been, of anybody on this in here, been in 3 runoffs. I won by 5 votes. It's not all about, I believe that everybody in this room should have the opportunity. If I don't get the 51%, you deserve the right to go in a runoff with me. I don't believe anybody should just hand me something. So at the end of the day, I always say, don't be scared. If you're afraid to get in the game, don't get in the game. Because to me, you want to change things, but really, what are you talking about, really? You talk about the mayor's name 45 times in a night, but it's about what you do.
It'll be 50 before the night's over.
Exactly.
So
he is the mayor. He was elected. Do his job.
Very angry.
He is the mayor.
You need help. You're angry. Very angry. You're angry. You need help.
Yeah, I know.
Very angry.
You're boss and boss.
I'll put a
I'm not
motion
by
on the
anybody.
floor.
Ain't nobody by me. You're
Yeah,
confused.
yeah, okay.
You're confused.
No, I'm not.
It's all right.
I want to put a motion on the floor to give Robin the help that she needs. Could you second me?
Second, there you go.
Thank you. Roll call.
Look at that number.
I don't really, I didn't. I'll show you.
Not in Westwood?
I did, I'll show you. I'll show you.
You got 2,000 votes. How do you get
2,700.
I got 2,000 votes all in Westwood.
About that, I'll show you.
I'm not typing. Go ahead and look. But you said you didn't.
I did.
You didn't. You don't have to do math, bro. You only got like 1,000 something in Westwood. All the rest came from the east, south, and whatever.
I'll show you.
Your council.
I'll show you.
So finally, for the ordinances, there was one latest addition, ordinance number 2016, which you all have in front of you, is amending Article 15, Section 83, audit warrant, payment of bills and claims listing for council. What this ordinance pretty much does, it requires the payment of bills to be approved by resolution of the governing body prior to any warrants or claims being paid by the city, which would be a change in the city code.
Can I speak on that?
We're moving straight to public comment.
Next on the agenda are public comments for docket items only. If anybody from the public wishes to speak on any item that's on the docket, please stand and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Afshin Shamsi. I'm a resident of Princeton, but I'm here tonight in my capacity as a concerned citizen and as an ACLU New Jersey board member. Good evening, Council President McBride and members of Trenton City Council. I want to thank you for your consideration of the Resolution 2046 that calls on our elected officials at every level to reunify migrant families, put an end to migrant detention, provide legal representation, and to afford migrant families with due process of law by allowing them the full and fair opportunity to seek protection from the United States. I'm especially grateful to Councilman Blakely for introducing this resolution to Trenton Council and to Councilman Rodriguez for all his support for this resolution. Like many across the nation, I've been in a lot of pain over the inhumane treatment of migrant families at our borders, in our detention centers, and in the interior of the country. Many of these families are fleeing violence or persecution in their countries of origin and have traveled great distances, overcoming the dangers of the road to seek a better life in the United States. They deserve our compassion, and at the very least, the opportunity to seek the protection of the United States by allowing them to go through immigration proceedings. Instead, they are faced here with unspeakable horrors, having their children taken away, being put in unsanitary cages without adequate food, water, and necessary medications. Children have died in these detention centers, and according to the Justice Department, many more have been sexually assaulted. I cannot begin to imagine the trauma these children and families must be experiencing, the devastating effects of which will last a lifetime. For a long time, as I saw this unfolding, I felt helpless, until I went to my mayor and council in Princeton and asked them to raise their voice on this issue. Princeton's Mayor Lumpert invited me to draft a resolution for them to consider. I did so with help from the ACLU New Jersey Senior Staff Attorney Farron Anello, who works on immigrants' rights, and Make the Road New Jersey's Director of Worker Organizing and Policy, Adel Ahmed. That is how this movement started. The resolution has thus far been passed by Montgomery, Bound Brook, Princeton, Hoboken, Jersey City, and several other New Jersey towns are considering it as well. A couple of weeks ago, I also spoke to the executive director of a national nonprofit which has 150 chapters across the country, and they've agreed to call upon their membership to disseminate this resolution across the nation. To this end, I'm developing a toolkit for them. In closing, as I've gone to different towns to speak in support of the resolution, some people have opined that it is not a township's place to comment on national matters. I sometimes wonder if this is how the Holocaust started, with people thinking, this is not my place to comment, this is not my jurisdiction. I believe that this is an issue for every person of conscience, every business, every corporation, every institution, and every elected official. Given the horrific and inhumane treatment of migrant families in our country, I believe that we collectively as a society need to raise our voices on this And given the migrant populations that call Trenton home, I believe that it is necessary for Trenton to take a stand on this issue to let migrants in your community know that their leaders support them. This is indeed not only a national matter, but a local matter as well that is of grave importance to many of your residents. I ask you to be among the first to join the movement to call for an end to the inhumane treatment of migrants in our country by what I hope will be your unanimous support for Resolution 2046. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you for raising your voice against injustice. Thank you for giving a voice to the voiceless.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak?
Thank you, Afshin. Hi everyone, Sean Miller, also of Princeton, but I will be speaking on behalf of the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice, also in favor of this resolution. I'll keep my comments brief in the interest of time. The conditions under which detained migrants are forced to live are absolutely abhorrent, as many of you may know or have seen in recent news, and resemble similar human rights violations committed throughout history, where adults, teenagers, and children have been corralled into small prisons, cells, detention centers, and different forms of human cages, in which they must live for months or years, no different than animals in factory farms, worse even than prisoners. Most of these people, now an estimated 52,000 persons each day, do not have enough food to eat, so they're constantly hungry and cannot access adequate medical attention. Consequently, some of these people and children have died under our protection. Thousands of these adults, teenagers, and children have reported being sexually and or physically abused while detained. Statistically, the odds are that some of these kids and adults are being abused right now as I speak. Annually, it's estimated that we now detain over 500,000 migrant people each year, a population roughly the same size as the entire city of Baltimore. We now also spend $3 billion a year to do so. To put this abstract figure in other words, it's as if every single American, adult, adolescent, and child is being taxed $27 a year to jail these people en masse. And make no mistake, our tax dollars are paying for this. The majority of these families also have been ripped from the arms of their family members and loved ones, and made to experience severe, pervasive, and lasting physical and psychological damage. This is the definition of inhumane, and as has been noted, is an ongoing violation of basic human rights, as has been established under Article 5 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as our own constitutional amendments. It is for these reasons, with basic human dignity, compassion, and justice in mind, that we call on our legislators, representatives, law enforcement, and the executive branch to heed this universal agreement in our nation's own supreme law. It is for this reason that the members of our diverse community, many of whom have seen and experienced various forms of systemic oppression and injustice firsthand, unanimously feel great pain in our hearts, empathy for our migrant neighbors, friends, and family, and the need to do everything reasonably within our power to defend them from this grossly inhumane, unjust, unlawful, un-American, and I believe un-Trentonian practice. Let us once again be a country, and I hope also a city, that stands up for the rights and dignity of our fellow human beings. Thank you.
Amen. Good evening, Council President, Council men and women, and my fellow Trenton citizens. My name is Evangeline. I am a Southwood resident. I stand here before you to echo the same sentiments that these two very fine people have spoken about regarding this very plausible cause. And in order not to be able to issue, I want to translate that into saying we, the residents of Trenton, are also asking for due course or due process to be afforded us. It is a travesty, a waste of our time, when we come to try to be civically involved in how our city is run, the matters that concern us at every level, when we sit here and ask questions and no questions are brought forward, or at best we get fragmented, disjointed, incoherent answers. Some of these questions have to do primarily with the fiscal condition of this city. I don't think it bears any more reiteration to say that we are a troubled city, physically. Okay, so we have to ask for accountability across the board in order to vote for some of these resolutions. These are regurgitated stuff over and over again for which capital development funds in the millions, hundreds of millions, have been appropriated, and we have yet to get the answers for what were done with those monies. And yet, every time we come to council, for the second year, when now, because this council has completed its first year, it's running on its second year, fiscally. I have seen these same situations come up over and over again. Doesn't matter who it is, the past person, new person. One thing that comes to really noteworthy attention to me is that the people that are brought to occupy these positions that are supposed to answer these very critical questions of accountability, fiscal accountability, are not from the city of Trenton here. I notice that there is no continuity, no succession plan for people that live in Trenton, that have a vested interest in the city of Trenton, to succeed in these positions. It is always people from outside who do not know us, who do not know the city, therefore cannot provide any coherent historical perspective, relevant answers to the questions that are being asked. I don't know why anybody would not want to have accountability in terms of having questions asked regarding the issues from the Department of Water, resolutions 2073 through 78, and are squawking about election moving that is supposed to save us money in this city. I don't know why anybody would not want to have accountability, to have information to make an informed decision. I don't know why. It is baffling, to say the least. Very much so. We have budget hearings. I have sat in on a couple this year already. It was disastrous. A waste of time, monumental waste of time. Tomorrow we have the police and we have the water coming up pretty soon. I've looked at the schedule. You cannot answer the questions that pertain to your department, and we're doing budgets. This is going to be another deja vu of last year. We are watching, like I said. This is a new day and time, the day and time of technology, instant recall, replay. We have a running spreadsheet of all the votes that are being passed out here. All the people that are bringing forth all these resolutions that are disjointed, that do not have time to answer to the simple work of accountability. We have our people providing very crucial, essential services in the public works, the police, the fire. Instead of talking about physical responsibility to support these people, we are being visited every day with regurgitated questions and quid pro quo, Trenton Stock Exchange questions of moving, reshuffling our money without explaining to us why there's reshuffling our money. Just approve it. Let's move on forward. Let's just stop.
Mary One Trenton, taxpayer, Oakland Civic president, and as a concerned citizen. I support 2014, moving the election. Why should we pay more money for a runoff and have and the general elections? That's two we have to put out for. So it's a known fact that the general election gives people more time to think about who, why, what, and when they go to the polls and vote. This is a good ordinance. I support it. My people in the West Ward, they support it. I don't know, Mr. Blakely, what you were saying, if you have a crystal ball to say that West Trenton has the most crime and shootings.
Never said that.
And I heard you say it. And when Captain Vaughn didn't even have the numbers, I don't know where your numbers came from, but I take it as personal as being a West Ward president. I know what goes on in the West Ward, okay? And we have, anybody here from the West Ward? Okay, has anybody spit on your sidewalk lately there? Has anybody? Oh, they have? Okay, and then what did you do about it? Did you
Nothing.
call the police, or they spit on my sidewalk? Well, what did you do about it? Okay? Because if crime exists, crime is crime. Okay? So, it happens all over the city, in the East Ward, the West Ward, the North Ward, and the South Ward. So how these numbers came about, I do not know. But know this. Robin Bond is doing a great job in the West Ward. Like it or don't like it. Kathy McBride lives in the West Ward. We're getting things done. We're working with CXX to clean up that whole path up there. We're the only ones up there that had it cleaned up. Okay? And we're also working on another project with the overpass. Things that the city just getting involved in. We did that on our own accord. So for someone to come here at City Council and make light of a female council member, all female council members as a matter of fact, you know, is a sadness accrues. And whether you like what someone's saying or not, if someone gives you a chance to speak, then don't degrade them or try to turn a blind eye to other people on that person who's speaking. And that's all that's been done, Councilman Blakely, on board. All I've heard you talk about was the administration. Never heard you talk about the people and what you were going to do for the people. All you just say is that who voted for you? Fine. They'll vote for you again. Okay? But we didn't come here to hear backlash to another city council member, especially women. And you do it to the men too. But that's you. If that's you, that's you. And all I have to say after that is that I support city council, the ones who are helping the people who ask them for help. I thank you. And I hope you continue to do so. And thank you for letting me speak tonight. Thank you.
We will continue with the resolution to enter into executive session. Resolution number 20-79, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Trenton, this body will convene an executive session here in the council conference room. The limited consideration of items arising with respect to which the public may be excluded pursuant to Section 7B of the Open Public Meetings Act. The general nature of the subject would be pending litigation in Michael Strikehardt versus the City of Trenton, and there is a discussion of the attorney-client privilege related to the mayor's veto. Stated as presently as possible, the following items from the circumstances of this discussion conducted at said meeting can be disclosed to the public will be February 4th, 2021, or when the needed for confidentiality no longer exists, whichever is later. The public is excluded from the said meeting. Further notice is dispensed with, all in accordance with sections 8 and 4A of the Open Public Meetings Act. Is there a motion to enter into executive session? Moved by Mr. Blakely, seconded by Mr. Harrison. Mr. Blakely?
Yes.
Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Michelle?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
No.
Ms. Vaughn?
No.
Ms. McBride?
For the, to go into session?
Yes.
Yes. What is the other piece to that, executive session? Isn't it to speak on the, what we supposed to be, speaking on something else in that session? What else?
Pending litigation, Michael Strikehardt. And then we'll be going to discuss how you're going to move forward regarding the mayor's veto. So, this meeting is closed to the public.
Other recess.
So it's a 5-minute recess and everybody else is